Counselor, thank you. May we have in the full house a sound check, starting with Counselor Eigenman.
Eigenman, number 12.
Earl's number 11.
Shan, number 10.
Vogel, number 9.
Tonta, 8.
Clerk, number 6.
Connell, number 7.
Zeed, number 4.
Sorry, I'm not working. Oh, there we go.
Number.
Junta, number 3.
Devlin, number 2.
Khan, number 1.
Thank you.
We'll start in a moment, but if you have a cell phone, would you please put it on mute so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings tonight?
That would have been me.
And I just know it's going to go off at the wrong time.
Looking at you, Mary.
No, we're not.
It's in the car.
There you are.
And counselors, we're working off of version 2 of the agenda, which you've all received from the clerk.
Yeah.
Because there are some changes between the time when you first got your packets and he found some changes and made them for you. We'll start in a minute. Okay. Rise, please. Before we begin tonight, I want to recognize a few prominent citizens who have passed on. First, Ted Atkinson, one of the owners, proprietors of Atkinson's Lumber. That was a proper lumber yard and hardware store. Where Oldies is now was the woodshed, a wonderful place. But what some people might not have known was that he was very active in the Rotary and really the founder of the Newburyport Chamber of Commerce, a distinguished citizen. Also, Ruth Hughes Brown, whose son Gary is a Newburyport firefighter, has recently passed. And Saul Katz, a proprietor of many, many years, decades, in fact, of the Premier Market and a distinguished proprietor and citizen of the city. I hope you'll keep them in your memory for a moment of silence. And I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Roll call this evening. Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Zeed.
Present.
Councilor Devlin.
Present.
Councilor Earl.
Present.
Councilor Eigenman.
Here.
Councilor Junta.
Present.
Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor O'Brien is absent. Councilor Shand.
Present.
Councilor Tontar.
Present.
Council President Connell.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Good. Are there any late file items?
There are no late files. There's a version 2 of the agenda on your desk that was sent out on Friday morning, or late Thursday, take that back. And with that is a letter from Walt Thompson regarding condo owners and trash pickup. Some people might know of the issue. And other than that, there are no late files. I would not call those late files.
All right. Public comment. We have a big crowd tonight, and I know that you're all eager to share your views on one item or another. Because of the large number of people we have tonight, I'm going to ask if you could limit your comments to 1 minute. It's usually 2 minutes, but we'll be here all night waiting for the rest of the agenda if everyone uses their full 2. I'll give you a little bit of flexibility. And if you are in a position to reiterate something someone else has said, your comments will still be entered into the record by just referring to what the other person said, and your name will be added to the public record in support of something that's already been presented. We'll start with Glenn Richards.
Thank you. I'll be real brief. I'm here as a nominee / appointee for the Historical Commission, and I just hope that you'll grant me the honor to serve on that commission. And if you've read the materials, hopefully you have them. The resume isn't so important as the cover letter kind of summarizes my attitude, and I think I can combine passion with pragmatism as kind of the approach, and that's really all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul O'Neill.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. A quick question for the council. How many new homes have been built in the last 5 years in the city? Do you know?
15,
How many new homes in the last 3 years?
250.
How many condo associations use private refuse removal, and how many condo associations use the city for refuse removal? Do you know? My questions are obvious because I'm trying to figure out how the council has come up to the conclusion that condo associations should bear the brunt of the charges, the $400,000 additional fees that Mello has charged the city. Thank you.
Mr. President, could we have name and address, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
He used to say so.
I can't read the first name, but his last name is Chandler, 34 Water Street. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Barry.
But
Good evening, Everett Chandler, 34 Winter Street, Newburyport. Here tonight speaking on the proposed zoning ordinance with respect to lot area and wetlands calculations. While I understand that there are many communities that have these types of ordinances, I think that they're more appropriate for a more rural community that has large tracts of undeveloped land that consist of a large piece of wetlands. And that, I think, is where this ordinance really belongs. Newburyport, we have almost built out the entire city. There's always small parcels that seem to be coming up. But where I see this going is it's going to impact all of the existing single-family homes, maybe two families, maybe multi-families. And if those people decide to go ahead and permit an addition, it's going to add multiple steps from going to just requiring a request for determination of applicability possibly to now you have to have an ANRAD. So you go to the Conservation Commission, get your wetlands line approved, then you have to determine your zoning. Go to the zoning board if you are non-conforming. Go back to the Conservation Commission with either an RDA or a notice of intent. So these added steps take what could be a potentially several $1,000 permitting issue for a single-family home in the Squire Glen neighborhood, in the Phillips Drive neighborhood, Turkey Hill, along the river, on Plum Island, and it might add as much as $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to that permitting effort. And it's really not, what are we trying to regulate? What are we trying to do with this regulation? I would like to see it put before the master zoning rewrite to be part of that effort so that we can study what is it we're trying to do here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to remind people, I'm going to give you a T, which means time is up, okay? That's what this means.
Mr. President.
Yeah,
Counselor.
It's just sort of put a point of order. The council has no position on condos and picking up trash. We have nothing before us on that. And because the gentleman noted that, asked why the council had done this, we've done nothing. We have nothing before us.
Correct.
I think that we need to make that clear.
For clarification,
We haven't done anything.
to folks who are
We haven't.
concerned about that issue, it's an executive function to negotiate contracts with various vendors. It's an executive function to then present to the council contracts for approval and budgets which we act on. So I understand that there are people who are concerned about trash pickup and the fees that are going to be imposed, but we don't have a number yet for any property, condo, single-family, residential, commercial, industrial. Just like to be clear about that to folks so that you don't labor under a misunderstanding of what's going on. It is, from my understanding, conversations with the mayor, a process in which it is being negotiated and considered, and policies are in the works. But I don't believe that any specific proposals have yet been settled on. I'm sure the mayor will address that in her comments tonight. Will want to. I have two people who've chosen not to, unless someone else scribbled out their names, not to speak, so I'll go to Laurel Allgrove. "22 Beacon Avenue."
Laurel Allgrove, 22 Beacon Ave. I'm speaking in regards tonight with the paid parking revenue. I hope you take into consideration that this should not be a one-size-fits-all mindset. What may work for Salem and Haverhill and Portsmouth doesn't guarantee that it will work for Newburyport. We are a city with different needs and economic stature. Extending the hours and increasing the fines and the rates may look good on paper, but ultimately will not look good in the coffers, as tourists may go elsewhere. And we, the citizens and business owners, eventually will end up paying the price. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jane Nocera.
Good evening, Jane Nocera, 25 Clipper Way. I honed my speech to 2 minutes, and now it's been cut in half, so I'm not sure exactly where to draw the line. So I'll just jump right to it. Pardon?
I'll wave at you.
You wave at me. I am the president of the Village at Newburyport Condominium Association. Tonight I represent 84 unit owners, and I speak indirectly for 320 unit owners that live on Clipper and Woodman Ways. Did you know there were 320 units on Woodman and Clipper Way? Do you know that 75% of them already pay for private trash pickup? Did you know that this year our two streets alone will generate $900,000 in tax revenue? And for those tax dollars, we will receive far fewer services than our counterparts, the single-family dweller. For 18 years, we have paid taxes and have never received snow plowing services, street sweeping services, street paving, pothole filling, crack sealing, sidewalk maintenance, street light maintenance, or leaf pickup services. And 90% of our units have never had a child in the school system. Imposing an impact fee on condo owners is tantamount to charging us a third time for a service we currently receive payment for once. I mean, we pay for once. The single-family dwelling has an average of 4 people living within it. A condo unit has 1 or 2. Single-family dwellings generate 2 to 3 times more trash than a condo owner. To single out a condo owner for an impact fee is blatantly illogical, divisive, and quite frankly, unconscionable. Thank you.
Thank you. Walt Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, President, and council members. Fairness is one reason my ancestor, Thomas Thompson, came to the U.S. He landed in Boston. It was October. It was 1653. He sought fairness from the oppressive landed hierarchy in Britain. 124 years later, Daniel Thompson sought fairness from unfair taxation and fought in the first American Revolution. Today, I'm asking you as city councilors to enact an ordinance to tax us fairly for trash disposal. We pay the same taxes, the same property taxes as condo owners. With regard to 100 State Street Condo Association, we have been told about a policy, nobody can find, that restricts trash pickups from our condos because we have a couple of renters. We have 9 units. We pay $42,000 in annual property taxes. We've had to remove 4 parking spaces and hire a trash hauler and dumpster. If the city is restricting services by searching out renters, they are doing a taking without compensation. Please enact an ordinance that allows all who live here to have weekly curbside trash pickups.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Nancy Pease, 53 Warren Street.
Good evening, Council President and Council. I'm here representing Courtyard 2, which has 76 units. I'm not going to add to what the woman from the Clipper City said, except to reemphasize that only 12 of our 76 units actually use the garbage pickup. We also pay for private pickup. However, I would like to move just to what we propose as a solution. We believe that a tax assessment should not be based on the form of home ownership. We believe the city should research how other municipalities are responding to the waste crisis, which we do recognize, and develop an equitable plan. We believe that the development of such a plan should be citywide and include participation of residential, commercial, and industrial sectors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd refrain from the applause, please, we can get through all of the people who want to testify. Jeanette Isabella of 1 Lime Street.
Street, that's right.
I almost said hi.
Well, I don't have a condo, and I am just learning a little bit about what is happening with trash pickup at condos. But I don't understand why you would segregate one part of the community. So, sure, we have a problem, but maybe there's got to be another solution besides just singling out condo owners. So maybe it's pay as you throw, or more work on the poor Molly Ettenborough's behalf, because she does so much. But we all need to wake up to the trash that we are generating and so on. So I think renters and homeowners of all, and condo owners and everybody should, do their part. I don't think just one section of the community should. And I just want to speak a little bit about the parking. I know, but I just want to say that the perception of the increased rate in parking stickers, permits, is that's paying for the garage, and we were promised that it wasn't going to pay for, cost us anything. And all. That's the perception that's out there. So I think lowering, I'm glad it's not 100, I think lowering that permit fee as much as possible is going to make people feel better, and then go up incrementally over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Rosen, 20 Fair Street.
Good evening, everybody. Mark Rosen, 20 Fair Street, regarding trash collection for everyone in Newburyport. To me, a household is a household. Some generate more tax revenue, some less. And so I make an assumption that I don't think anybody can argue with, that owners of all types of homes and renters, we all expect the same level of city services: schools, police, fire, DPW, and trash collection. Now, it's come to my attention and everybody else that somehow, and some time ago, someone thought it was okay to take trash collection off that list for certain kinds of homes. In this case, my friend who lives in a 9-unit condo complex has to pay for trash collection. Members of the city council, no pun intended, but we have some cleaning up to do. Regardless,
that was pun intended.
Who gets trash collection and who does not, it seems like there are no official policies set by city ordinance. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Whether a rental or owner occupied, every household should be treated alike. Please, let's get this situation fixed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Art Courier, 100 State Street.
Good evening. I'd just like to acknowledge the mayor's working very hard with her team to keep the taxes down and control costs. Molly Ettenborough Health Department is doing a lot to make sure our recycling programs, our waste programs are under control, and you're working very hard for the city. But we've got to look forward. We need to look at, this is about waste. I'm not talking about condo fees. We need to have a plan for 5 years from now because of the changes that are happening in the world around us. We're going to be dealing with these issues and many more if we don't plan forward and work it backwards. Rather than react to this situation, which you have to do, you have to deal with it. But it shouldn't become a permanent solution until we consider all the things that we have to deal with and that you are going to have to deal with the administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne Allard, 5 Parker Ridge Way.
In the interest of saving time, just ditto what she said.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it's Jane Allard, isn't it?
Jane, yes.
I apologize, Jane.
It doesn't look like Wayne.
Elizabeth Heath, did you want to get up? Your name is crossed off.
No,
Okay, thank you. Victoria, Vicky Carr, Victoria Carr, 1 Hill Street, please.
Can you reach that?
I always have this problem. Good evening. I'm glad we're having the opportunity to be able to voice how we feel about the proposed or the ordinance that's being worked on for trash collection. I know everybody has tried very hard in the city to find a way to be able to afford the kind of trash pickup we want for the recycling. But putting the burden on one group of people doesn't make sense. I mean, I pay taxes based on the value of my condo. I don't pay taxes based on whether my son is in school or not, or whether I park in the city parking lots. And I think we need to get some other ideas on how to deal with the high cost of trash removal. Thank you.
Thank you. Almost exactly 1 minute. Good job, Vicki. Bob Lynch, 13 Parker Ridge Way.
Some of these two are and also, you know, it's we do have a trash problem. I agree with Art. Citywide, statewide, worldwide. But to saddle the way somebody owns their property is, in my estimation, capricious, arbitrary, discriminatory, and possibly illegal. We need to not single out people's, you know, I live at Parker Ridge Way. I pay $11,500 in property taxes. I'm elderly, if you can believe that. And it's simply not fair. You know, we have a street that we have to pay for, snowplow, same thing up at Woodman Way. You know, we need a little bit of relief on that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher Fay, 20 Strong Street.
I'm on the agenda for number 10 for the Historical Commission. You want me to leave?
No, come on up. This is your time. This is your time.
This is my time. Good evening. Christopher Fay, 20 Strong Street, and I'm here for your consideration for an appointment to the Historical Commission. And I would appreciate your appointment and the chance to serve the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You said what? You need me to stay?
No.
That's it. You can go.
You're welcome. You're welcome to. I don't know why you'd want to.
For your, and also to Glenn, appointments like this will be referred to committee later this evening. So if you don't want to stick around, there's no reason for you to stay. Okay. Go watch the Bruins or the Celtics or whatever. Paul Bevelak, 126 Merrimack Street.
It's zoning, planning, development. I mean, planning board.
Thank you. I'm basically going to say ditto, but I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to say ditto. And for those of you councilors who received my letter today representing the Rivers Edge Homeowners Association, of which I'm the president, and we have 65 units, 63 of which are residential. The information's in there, but I concur with everything my colleagues and cohorts in the same position have said. It doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't read the, oh, it's Sandra. Sandra Turner, I believe, Plum Island. There we are.
Hello, my name is Sandra Turner. I'm a local artist from Plum Island, and I'm here to support the licensing of additional artisan revival shows on In Street. This is the third year we've had the Artisan Revival. I'm also the co-chair of the Revival for Yankee Homecoming, and also the Craft Day show that is now this year included in with the Artisans Revival. So we're hoping we have a lot of artists that are interested in doing additional shows, and John's done a good job of, arranging the different dates to coincide with other events in Newburyport. So I'm just hoping we get a positive result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Brown, 42 Federal Street.
Good evening. My name is John Brown, 42 Federal Street. I've been doing business as Spirit of Newburyport for 12 years. I've been an artisan down on In Street as a transient vendor license for 9 years. I'm here on behalf of the artisans. You have a special event application as far as your packets this evening, and we are asking that you approve 7 additional expanded art shows on In Street that consist of no more than 10 artisans at a time. These are small-scale shows. These are not festivals. These are art shows. And we've noticed over the past few years that art has been in decline in the city of Newburyport. And I've often heard it said in the city that the city should do something for artists in the city. And I think that by doing something for the artists, you also do something for the city itself. So we'd appreciate if you approve this special event application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bill Harris, 56 Lime Street.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Very briefly, I want to comment on order number 24, which is now before Planning and Development. It's an important potential ordinance to bring the property of the NRA to the city of Newburyport. Today, I just submitted some comments to the sponsors of the bill and the Planning and Development Subcommittee, and I just urge you to be patient to be sure we get all the issues taken care of successfully in Newburyport, because we will need pretty much unanimity to get what we'll need for an Article 97 element of it, a 2/3 vote of the House and the Senate and the governor's approval. So I'm looking forward to working with the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Melinda Everett, 7 Parker Ridgeway.
Hi, everybody. I'm talking about trash. I'm trash talking.
Shocking.
It's a very important issue. I don't do makeup and manis after 7 usually, but I'm here. What Bob Lynch said, what Jane said, what my new best friend, I don't know her name, said, but I grew up in Newburyport. I spent the first half of my life trying to get out of Newburyport, the second half trying to get back in. Finally did it, but my only question is, we love our condos. I don't have kids in school. I don't shop downtown unless I can find a space and I have a senior sticker. But my question is, why? I mean, I'm just a poor little condo owner, and, why focus on us? Thank you.
Thank you.
She was awesome. It's better than TV.
I'm losing track here. Edward D'Souza, from North Reading, I believe.
Yes. I just want to thank the council and Andy for addressing the marijuana cultivation in the industrial park. I've been at this now with Newburyport for over 3 months. I think everybody's realized that there is a difference between retail sales and cultivation, which we're trying to get into a license. I started my first company here in Newburyport, and unfortunately we had to move out. And I want to start my second company, which is a small cultivation business, No retail sales. Nobody would even know we were there if it wasn't for all these meetings. The revenue that we and other businesses will bring to the town will more than pay for tax increases for trash. I believe you have an industrial park. Use the industrial park. Right now, Newburyport is losing considerable revenue because there's a lot of companies that are going to surrounding towns like Rowley, Amesbury, Haverhill. You can bring a lot of tax revenue and it will not damage any reputation in Newburyport. So I'm hoping that you do pass the zoning ordinance and consider the entire industrial park. That's what it's there for. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice Hayes, 1 Zabriskie Drive.
Good evening. I've lived at Zabriskie Drive for almost 3 years, and I wanted to come tonight, even though it was a big trek to get up here from work, but I knew that a lot of my neighbors wouldn't be able to be here. A lot of them are even older than I am, and some of them are not well. And none of us, in 6 buildings, I think there are 28 units. It's been there a long time. Everybody knows where it is. It does not generate a lot of trash. We just, people who live alone don't make a lot of trash. So it really is incomprehensible that this group of people who are not high income earners would be subjected to paying for a public service privately. It doesn't make sense. And this is a city, it's not Podunk. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Jane Snow, 9 Coffin Street.
I'd like to speak tonight basically about Councilor Chanta's resolution. I believe that's 29. I'm excited to know that the virtual parking is about to become a reality. I wish it would happen yesterday versus in the future. I think it's going to help a lot with all the questions that have been generated in the last 6 or 8 months about, how do you have the parking spaces turn over? Is it too many stickers are sold and so forth and so on? I take offense with John Burke's study because I don't think it had a big enough sampling. And some of the things that he said, like people using their permit for all-day parking in the Green Street lot, if that's the case, how did he figure that out when our own parking department says, how can we figure it out? Because we don't know if the people left and came back. So I'm excited that we're going to have this new way of gathering data and information. I was excited to hear that we are aware that we have outgrown the revolving fund, and excited to find out about Order 29, the details to it. I want to hear more about, quote, the improvements for the public realm. What does that mean? But I think the most important thing to me, as you look at the ordinance that you have before you tonight, I believe that one is 20, that I don't want the fee to feel like it's arbitrary, and I had a wonderful conversation with Councilor Khan today, and I wish I had had it a little bit earlier so I could digest a little bit more of the information. And I can respect how many hours that she said that she put into this, but as you refer tonight, if you're for the 15, 20, whatever you're for, I want you to tell us how you got that data that supports that decision. I don't want it to be, I picked 20. I think 10 is good. That would be a great help. And my last statement is, people come because they are concerned, and to have it cut when they get here the time, I think doesn't make it very welcoming. And not only that, but also having it so that people have to stand in the hall is even less welcoming. So I think that's one of your to-do lists, to change that, because we only have 3 minutes to talk to you, and this is our only time. So it's disheartening for all these people to be excited about something and then have a minute.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Rob Germanara, 2 Ashland Street.
Thank you, Council President Cannell. Good evening, City Councilors, City Clerk Jones. Rob Germanara, 2 Ashland Street. Very briefly, 3 years ago in the same City Council chambers, I brought up the issue of business licenses being issued to businesses that don't pay their taxes. There's a letter that I've written to you and an ordinance that clearly shows that there's a business that owes $7,555 in taxes, and they haven't paid. Rather than receive and file that, I would ask that somebody would take that out tonight, refer it to licenses and permits, and deal with that head-on. No business in the city should be rewarded with a valuable business license when they owe real estate taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've been through the entire list. Thank you for your testimony. I'm not going to comment on it. I think it's time for the mayor's comment. Mayor Holliday?
Thank you, President Connell, members of the City Council. First and foremost, I am not sure where any of this information regarding trash and what is to happen got out there. Social media sometimes can be our worst enemy. I have given you updates to the council periodically about where we were when the trash contract went out to bid. They came back 36% in increase. We were negotiating with our current hauler, trying to get the trash down. We've been looking at our existing contract and all other communities, balancing things. No, I repeat, no decisions, no fees, no changes have been decided at all. So I don't know where all this information came from, and I apologize that you got this all misinformation. I saw your petition. I uploaded a document that gave you the latest information on where we were with the contract. The health department and the Board of Health is the board that will review and approve our 3-year trash contract. But because it is over 3 years or more, the City Council will also have it. That's the time when you will have a legislative piece of information, a contract that you will look at. I feel very strongly that anyone who receives trash pickup now, it should continue. I have never been a proponent for pay-as-you-throw. I've never been a proponent of additional fees. So I apologize that all of you have come here for all this misinformation, but there is no changes right now to any of the trash. We are trying to figure this out. I think Art Courier said it best, and you've heard me say this about the Chinese sword, what's happening with, we used to get reimbursed and receive revenue stream for recycling, now we pay for it. And it's getting worse and worse. But we might be limiting barrels, we might be limiting size of barrels, but we are not going to take trash away from people who currently have trash pickup. And we are working on a final draft of our contract this week, and then we'll let everyone know when it's before the Board of Health and before the City Council for feedback. So again, I apologize that you had all of this misinformation, and it's really unfortunate that people presented all this misinformation on social media. But I assure you that it will be fair and equitable to all the residents. We're very aware of the property taxes that everyone pays. Okay, moving on. Budget is finally balanced, and I'm not going to go over some of the details that are here. I'm going to try and rush through this update because it's been a long public comment. But you will receive the full budget and the FY18 capital requests on May 14th. I'm very happy to announce that Sean Gallagher was unanimously approved, his contract by the school committee at our last meeting, a $172,000 contract, and he is beginning his transition. So very, very pleased to have him on board. Fogs, I've talked to you about this before. The picture that you have is a 4-inch pipe that is almost completely clogged with fats, oil, and grease. We had all the restaurateurs, the haulers, and other businesses that do serve food in for another training, and we'll be working to move our fog regulations forward and protect our infrastructure as well as businesses so that they don't shut down as a result of this accumulation in pipes. Plummer Spring Bridge, there's been some misinformation in the Globe as well as the Daily News. It's not a bridge owned by West Newbury, it's owned by Newburyport on the West Newbury line, but because it is a pass-through, we met with the selectmen, and Mass DOT has been monitoring this bridge with us. It will be shut down to vehicles as the end of June, and there'll be plenty of notice on either side of that bridge. And there's a picture here too. Had I think, a very productive joint meeting with the Waterfront Trust, NRA, and the city. Members of Citizens for an Open Waterfront and the settlers were there to participate. We looked at the conceptual map and worked through a lot of the parcels of land. Still have more work to do. There are 2 documents that are out there. One is the work that the group that the city representatives of the Waterfront Trust and the NRA have been meeting, and the other is the final consensus document by the City Council, their ad hoc group, and we are merging those 2 documents as the next step to move forward. At the follow-up meeting the next night that the Council had, my understanding is that Mr. St. Cyr and Mr. Ulick have agreed to stay on through the end of June and then not seek additional reappointment. So we've got some conversations to have about what we do in terms of a quorum for the NRA. Plum Island, 25% of the sand has been placed. We got shut down because we didn't have the appropriate, we had 3 bird monitors that weren't good enough, so we had to find an appropriate plover monitor. We have done that. The work is resuming over there, and we have sand coming from the Point, the Charros dredge, as well as sand that the residents bought. There's a picture in the update that shows where the level of erosion that has occurred. We are also waiting, we should hear by mid-next month, hopefully from the Army Corps of Engineers about the Pasquatica River dredge. It's one of 11 dredge projects that they're considering, and if that happens, that would provide offshore placement in Salisbury for Plum Island that would get into the littoral system. Senator Ives is also working with us on a reserve for appropriation, potentially account, or it could be a trust fund, depending if DCR may give us the rest of the property out there for the parking lot, and then we could, add a buck or 2 and be able to start a nourishment fund to try and help with some of the issues on Plum Island. We had a very productive meeting with Stephen Karp, John Tuig, and the new Scott Kelly, who's been replaced by a gentleman by the name of Michael Duffy. We met this past week, Andy Port and I. I'm really pleased that they really listened to residents. They have reduced density and height, and we will do an informal meeting with a couple members of the City Council Planning and Development, Andy Port, myself, a couple members of the Planning Board, to meet with that NED team to set forward how we begin to move forward and roll out their new plan. But there'll be more information coming on that. Cree did a video shoot. They were the company that we purchased our LED streetlights from. They came and spent a week here doing this whole video about Newburyport. I'm anxious to see what it looks like, and we'll share it with you. Also wanted to let you know that Mike Bartlett received the President's Award at the Newburyport Chamber, and congratulations to Ralph Castagna, who received the coveted Ed Mullen Award at their annual meeting last week. We had a wonderful, wonderful meeting at the Essex County Community Foundation, all about the creative arts, the arts economy, in terms of bringing our cultural district together with artists and the theater and all the different art groups, and begin to apply for another series of grants. More information will be coming on that. Our Neighbors Table is a wonderful organization in Amesbury that is charged with also serving Newburyport, but they've been busy building out their new space, and would like to be able to address some food insufficiencies, which are pretty significant here in Newburyport, and we're working out a system on how they can get some of their product here to serve residents of Newburyport also. Congressman Moulton brought us a group of amazing students from Kennedy School of Government to work on a project under, it's a FEMA program called CRS, Community Rating Scale. It is incredibly complicated, and in order to become a CRS community, it takes a tremendous amount of work, probably 6 months to maybe 18 months, but what happens is that it helps with flood insurance and decreasing those values for residents who are in flood zones or velocity zones. So we're sort of looking at the ad hoc resiliency group. We'll take a look at that. And just a couple upcoming dates. Next week I will be at the Mayor's Spring Conference down the Cape. I will be gone Wednesday through Friday. This Friday night, May 4th, is our second annual Show Your Sport, where we'll be recognizing 3 amazing coaches and champions of youth sports. Mike Berry from the Pioneer League, Kevin Lucy, basketball coach, and Neil Reardon, who I understand taught a couple sports. And then on May 17th is the annual Boy Scout Breakfast and Civic Award at 7:30 at the Senior Community Center. And this year, Ann Ormond, Vicki Hendrickson, and Skip and Marge Moat will be recognized. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. President, may I ask a question?
Yes, Councilor.
I'm just a little bit concerned about the trash, and I do want to ask a question. My concern is that if the budget is balanced and it's ready for us to get it in the next meeting, if I understand, and the top is, my assumption is there that the trash number has been agreed upon. So is the contract available that we could see it? I mean, so the price that you're carrying in the budget is going to be a best estimate based on where we are today? Okay. Thank you.
With Councilor Agaman.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the fog. That is distressing. But the fines aren't going to start for 24 months, you said. Why so slow?
Because you, it's 6 months for of good data in terms of having your grease trap cleaned, and then the variance, you can apply for one, and there's a lot of restaurants that are talking about applying for variances, so we're trying to get them in a system of collecting the data, because the fines are hefty. First offense, 1,000, second offense, 5,000, third offense is 10,000. So we're trying to roll out the system in a supportive way before we start slapping fines, and ensure that the haulers, as well as all the restaurateurs, really understand the significance of this process. So they have a notebook, we have a new app that shows every place in the city that has a grease trap, and it has a code next to it in terms of whether they're in compliance or not. So it's really accurate data, so we're trying to do more education and working before we start slapping fines.
But the regs aren't new, are they?
No.
Okay.
No. But it's just amazing how many people just don't understand this. And then the next step is that we have to start educating residents about protecting our infrastructure too. That little can to pour your bacon fat in so it doesn't go down the drain. You know.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the councilors? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Let's proceed to the consent agenda. The clerk's going to lead the way. Please,
The consent agenda this evening consists of the minutes approval for April 9th. There's one transfer number 8, park maintenance trees, 9,000, to seasonal employees, same amount, that's to be referred to Budget and Finance. There's a number of communications, a couple of them have been removed. Communication 30, which is the annual Yankee Homecoming Road Race, 7/31/18, that goes to Public Safety. Communication 31, in-street artisan revivals that John Brown spoke about, that's to go to license and permits. Communication 33 regarding business licenses and permits, that has been removed. It'll be taken up in the regular agenda. There's no collection tonight. At least there aren't 2. Communication 34, ASME Local 939, tentative agreement to go to Budget and Finance. Communication 35, block party, Lafayette Road, 7/21/18, to go to Public Safety. Communication 36, memo regarding proposed marijuana zoning amendments. That's also been removed, taken up in the regular. Communication 37, the Pan Mac Ride 6/16/2018. That again is to go to Public Safety. And Communication 38, which is the letter regarding trash pickup that we heard about, that's to be received and filed. The following appointments. Appointment 34, Christopher Fay, 20 Strong Street, to the Historic Commission until 5/1/2021. Appointment 35, Glenn Richards, 6 Kent Street, to the same Historic Commission until 5/1/2020. There are 2 reappointments. Appointment 36, Mary Zink, 6 Laurel Road, to the Board of Registrars until 3/31/2021. And appointment 37, Bonnie Sontag, 10 Upland Road, to go to the Fruit Street, for the Fruit Street Local Historic District in 5/31/2021. Appointments that are coming in but will be referred to Planning and Development are as follows. 1, appointment 38, Ed Cameron, 17 Oakland Street, to the Zoning Board of Appeals until 2/1/2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Councilor Zede.
I'd just like to comment briefly on the trash discussion and just maybe expand on the Ward 4 councilor's comments a little bit. We're not sure exactly what's happening at this point. That's the honest answer. That's the reason for my question to the mayor. I'm concerned that a contract is completed or near completion at a certain rate, and if there are changes that have to come with that in order to make that contract work, I would like to know about them. So if you're interested in the issue, I would just urge you to keep up with us during our budget process, because that's likely the time when we'll discuss it. And we'll see what happens. I mean, as was acknowledged, we do have an issue. We can't control the Chinese sword policy, but we can control how we react to it. So until we get the budget and understand and maybe see the contract as well, I think we're flying a little bit blind. So I can only share the frustration, but we need more information to be able to comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? All those in favor of receiving and filing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Do we have to act on the mayor's update? I guess we do, don't we?
I think that, Mr. President, was that approve the consent agenda?
Approve.
Yes. Receive and file.
Let's do that again.
Yeah. Motion to approve.
Second. Seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. It's the antihistamines talking, sorry.
Benadryl. Getcha.
We have the mayor's update. What is the will of the council?
Motion to receive and file.
Second. Second. Discussion? Yes, sir.
I mean, we've done this, we did do a fairly thorough review of our rules. We're trying to work together. We asked if we could receive the update by 11. I have expressed to the mayor's office that if we need to amend that to make it work, let's just do that instead of playing this game every 2 weeks. So if a little bit more time is needed in the day, I think the council is just looking for a little bit of time before the meeting. I don't think that's too much to ask. Understand that the administration is very busy. We all are. So can we just figure this out? And bluntly, if the time is 2 p.m. that needs to get it done, just tell me and I'll sponsor it for the next meeting so we can move on. Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Communications.
First communication is number 29 EP, so-called emergency preamble for outdoor seating, West Row Cafe.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Approved and seconded. Discussion? Councilor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is attached to this preamble, and I would ask for your indulgence. The genesis of this preamble is meeting the applicant for the outdoor seating from West Row on the steps of City Hall. Just happened to be walking in and said, hey, how you doing? Congratulate him on the success of his business. And we started talking about why he was here. And it was his understanding that he had just submitted everything that he needed to submit, and that it was going to come to City Council tonight, and he was going to be approved for outdoor seating at this meeting so that he could get a jump on the season May 1st. And unfortunately, as we know, that isn't quite exactly how it happens. And I can tell you, there's a lot of business owners out there that don't really know how things work. Whether it be the grace of us or the grace of them, but we need to let them know and do everything we can to support the businesses. So I appreciate your support, if you will, on this emergency preamble and then following on the order next to it. Thank you very much.
Councilor Zede.
It is with regret, unfortunately, I cannot support the emergency preamble. There's a little bit of history with this one. Both myself and the Ward 2 councilor made efforts about 6 months ago to try and help with this issue as it was working through the Parks Commission at the time, because at the time the understanding was that was Parks Commission jurisdiction area there. There have been some physical improvements that have been made to the site at the expense of the applicant, and then there was maybe going to be a license agreement. I understand the city solicitor was involved, and to be honest with you, the trail went cold, and they basically said they were going to handle it. So I'm a little bit unsure of why this is now before us, what has changed, but I do think it merits a discussion with the license and permits to understand what happened. Have any agreements been signed with the applicant? Have any indemnifications been made on either end? Have any fees been paid or suggested donations, is the phrase of the week, been made to anybody? It's with great regret, because it's never my intention to hold the business up, but for 2 weeks, if we can get our hands around what happened, or maybe the sponsor knows, because I don't.
Councilor Bogle.
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to address that in the seating, but in answer to your question, well, there's a couple of issues that were actually before us, but I did talk to the Parks Director this afternoon, talked to her before, and then reaffirmed today that everything is in place. The agreements have been made. The Parks Commission is in favor. They're all but signed and moving down the road. They've got it figured out and are very comfortable with it. And she indicated to me today that she was more than comfortable with us moving forward tonight. Specifically asked the question, are you comfortable with us approving outdoor seating there tonight? She said, yes, we're looking forward to it. It looks great. There's an issue also from the Ward 2 councilor, or there was. I had asked him about this when I saw him last at the meeting upstairs, and I had indicated that about what I was going to bring forward tonight. And there was I was told that there was a bit of an issue with some construction that had been done, maybe not as well as it should have been. I put him and the applicant together. My understanding from the Ward 2 councilor, without putting words in his mouth, that he's okay with it, that communication has happened. So those two issues have been cleaned up and ready to move forward, is my understanding.
Councilor Zede again. I'm sorry. Councilor Khan, I missed your hand.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too am a little wary, and it's not because I don't support the small businesses and I understand the struggles and what they're trying to do, and I think it's a great idea to have the outdoor seating. But a couple of things that I just want to make clear, that as I'm understanding the process, is once we approve outdoor seating, it's good for 2 years, and then it comes before the City Council again. So I just really, not allowing it to go through the process, which is just 2 weeks away, I am really hesitant to approve this. I'm not hearing anything that's really making it like it has to happen tonight, and that's why the emergency preamble should be used. But I'm willing to listen more to this debate. I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Councilor Zede?
Well, I'm going to ask two questions, maybe. Do you know the length of the licensing agreement signed with the Parks Commission Department? Do you know if there's a fee associated with it, and if so, how much is it?
Mr. Vogel?
No, and I don't know. So I do have complete faith in what I was told this afternoon, that they are comfortable with moving forward on this. Again, I asked her specifically, are things in place? Yes, things are in place. Whatever the time limit may be. I'm sorry to be unprepared with those exact questions. With regard to, the understanding of small businesses, you're looking at a small businessman, and if somebody doesn't walk into my store, I don't eat. And the beginning of the season is tomorrow. The beginning of the season, hopefully, is tomorrow. This has been a dreadful, dreadful season for all the business owners in this community. I, for one, have not taken a paycheck for 3 weeks, or for 3 pay periods, and that's never happened to me in my owning of my businesses. And I can tell you very well that every business in town is going through the same darn thing. We can beat dead horses. We can look at dead horses over and over and over again. This is simply allowing a business owner to put tables out. We've been through this last year. We've talked about it. It's nothing really new. But we can talk about it for another 2 weeks if you like, but you're going to be denying a business owner a fair amount of revenue. We've only have half a year, maybe, to get it together for the entire year.
Councilor Agaman.
Yeah, I'd like to make a suggestion. I mean, Councilor Large is correct. I am satisfied on the zoning violations. The owner called me and I talked to the zoning administrator, so I'm satisfied it's being taken care of. It is true also that I never really got a complete answer on what's going on with the Parks Commission. But I'm okay with going forward with this because I am the Ward 2 councilor and I do want the businesses to succeed. The reason why I'm willing to go forward with it, though, is because it's a license. It's revocable. So basically, if any of the representations made to us are untrue, we can revoke this license. So that's why I'm comfortable doing it. It's going to hit 70 degrees tomorrow. supposedly 80 on Wednesday. So I want to give them a chance, but it's not over. I mean, we're going to, at least a few of us are going to be looking more into, what happened in that license with Parks Commission, because I'm a little confused why we're giving a license and they're giving a license. Why doesn't he just need one license? But again, it's just a license, and as will come up in a minute on the flammables, we're giving something valuable to a business owner. It doesn't belong to him. That's public property, and I want to make sure everything's followed. I can appreciate the need to get the good weather, so I'm willing to vote for this, as I told the councilor at large, but reserving rights to revoke.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Devlin?
If I remember this correctly, we had an issue is that with the very thing that we were just talking about, the Parks Department is giving them a license and then they're signing an agreement. This is not this is not property under our purview. It's property that we were told under the Parks Department. There was some suggestion that it was going to be a 30-year or 20-year license agreement to use that space. Well, these are the questions that we were asking 6 months ago and never heard anything else from. And there was the idea that that's taking in-street park property that is now ostensibly to be used for the residents to enjoy. And there was some suggestion the last time that, well, it was a license, so it was non-exclusive use, so that other people could sit down at the West Rose tables, which from a business perspective seems wholly unworkable to me. Look, I was on the license commission. The owner of the property and the former business there, Orange Leaf and West Row, they had come before us, and he is an honorable and upstanding person who tries to do the right thing. But in this case, there's just too many questions. That's why don't have licensing and permits then, because I had to run from Pioneer League today, which is a hot topic in the city, to come to licensing and permits, and I would have rather stayed for another 15 minutes with practice, because kids need the batting practice. So unfortunately, I agree, it's only 2 weeks. And we can get it done there, and we can go through our normal process, and I just don't see having a nice day of weather tomorrow is not an emergency. If that's the case, then they're all emergencies, and we should just approve everybody's as quickly as they come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's unfortunate that we have to use the word emergency when it comes to having to discuss an item of the moment. Yes, is it an emergency? No. But this is the manner in which we're able to move on things because of the way the charter is written out. So we have to call it an emergency preamble in order to discuss it and to move on it. There's been a lot of conversation with a lot of people. The License Commission has given him okay for his liquor license. The Parks Commission is in conversation and in agreement with what is going on. And yes, 2 weeks is huge for a business owner to miss 2 weeks where we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the weather to turn, and to not have it be rainy or cold or whatever it might have been. It's huge. And we're going to say no. It'll be interesting to see what the vote is.
Councilor Zede.
Well, I have to respond. I mean, it's not a fair comment. We have a process here. We exist for a reason. So when you put that weight on us, it's not fair. I didn't ask for that. I'm not the one that brought the permit in today. I'm still trying to figure out where the last 5 months went. I mean, some of us went back and traced our email trail on this where we tried to be helpful. It was more than 6 months ago. So the idea or concept that we're not working hard or turning things fast enough is, unfortunately, it's not a compelling argument for me. I am very sympathetic, and I want to figure something out, and I'd like to ask the clerk if he feels that we can issue a 14-day permit and use something creative here to get us out of this bind. None of us want to inhibit somebody from earning a living, but just like with the events and the races, which we've talked about ad nauseum, we have a time period for a reason. And this one, I'm telling you, is sufficiently murky because still don't get what happened. And I'm concerned that the Parks Commission is issuing an overlapping license, which may have contradictory terms to the license we may issue, because we don't know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So if this had come in with a signed license agreement from the Parks Commission, if there's a fee, where is it going? That's an important topic for me, I'll tell you that. And this work that was done by the applicant on the grounds, which I understand was somehow related to drainage, and the exclusive, non-exclusive thing was a big issue last time around too. So I want a way out, but I think a fair hearing is, it's public property. That's what we do, so.
Would the clerk like to comment?
Yeah, it's a license, and I think you can put any subject to that's reasonable on it. And if you put a subject to review in 14 days, I think that's, without looking at the ordinance.
Well, it says, the initial permit may be issued for a period of 1 year subject to city council approval by majority vote. May be issued for 1 year. I read that to mean that we have some flexibility. So I basically will just make I will go along with the emergency preamble and propose that amendment during the next thing on the sort of general agreement, some nods that I'm getting, that may be a way for us to resolve this, get the gentleman his permit, and give us some time to figure it out.
Councilor Earls.
I don't know if we're going beyond the scope of discussing the emergency preamble, and I think we may be, honestly. But my fear then I guess I should wait, because I fear with the 2 weeks, the applicant will then invest in blocking off this area because it has to be controlled because there's alcohol going to be served there. And now the argument will be, well, I've invested so much, you can't possibly pull it after 14 days. So I worry about that. I'm sensitive to the council from Ward 2 being a former ward councilor. I take that with a lot of weight, that they're okay with it. So I came in as a definitive no. I'm now moving toward a yes. I'm concerned about the 14 days just for that reason. It'll come back and the sympathy vote will happen where, oh, okay, you're a small businessman. So, so now I'm a little twisted with it. I think I am leaning yes because I'll defer to the ward councilor.
And just for clarification, I think it's appropriate to bleed into the content of the license at this point. They're of it's a single issue, one having direct bearing upon the other, but we're still talking about. Excuse me, but the point is that we're discussing it all together right now, and I think that's reasonable. Councilor Eigenman?
Yeah, just to clarify, the actual the barrier has been up actually all winter, so he's already made the investment, and that actually was another point of friction, is that he was assuming he was going to get it this whole time. So in his particular case, I hear you. That would be a problem for another business owner, but in this one, he wouldn't have that moral authority. So I like the idea of the 2 weeks. I think it's elegant, so he can open, take advantage of the weather, and then we'll take stock.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add one more thing before we do the vote on the emergency preamble is if there's any way we can work with the Chamber of Commerce or some way to educate and let people know in terms of timing to come before us and how long it takes in these type of permits would be great. So I don't know if there are any other types of avenues to put in this kind of communication. I would just really encourage that we look into that to prevent these type of situations. Thank you.
Fair point. Councilor Zede.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. I mean, I think it's a great idea, and the way we did it with the events, which we have a similar issue with, is we started collecting email addresses, for example, with applications. And I bet you we could pull a list of emails and just push them all out, and if it's not exactly applicable, that's okay. But everything in the council, you can assume, takes a minimum of 2 weeks. Just saying that publicly on the camera. That's our schedule. That is actually moving fast for us. If something comes in one meeting, comes out the next, most of us are here 3 to 4 nights a week as it is. So we are working hard. And I don't say that to toot our own horns, but I'm just telling you that that is fast. Coming in and going out the same night is like lightning speed. So then there's no chance for a committee meeting. And we're basically having a committee meeting here, which is why we don't do this, so that we can get out before 11 and I don't have to buy everybody pizza. So,
all right.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilor Genta.
I just want clarity. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
So let's just play this out. So they get a 14-day license. Does that mean on day 15, the chairs will be piled up on the side and the tables, and if we've not fully addressed the situation. And again, I don't say that in a negative way. I'm just trying to figure out where we're going with this, because I would like to see this licensing agreement. It's private property. I mean, it's public property. A private business is using it. I just like to see what we're doing here, but I don't want to obstruct a small business from making money. I am just very concerned with what deals have been made that we don't know about. That's all.
Councilor Vogel.
You don't want to move the question on this and then move on to we're going to discuss both. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, we're discussing both.
Okay.
Act on each of them independently.
All right. I'll
Councilor Vogel.
continue my comment. I think that's a great consideration. And so the couple of points. One, it is the Parks Department purview to allow that seating. It's not 2 licenses, but it's for them to allow that to allow the use of the space. It's us that allows the seating. So it is a little bit that way. And in terms of the timing, I would think that I think that's a brilliant solution. Thank you very much. And we just let him know that if they don't have it together, and if by the next meeting, and we can bring it forward the next meeting, we can review. Maybe we don't call it 15 days, but we call it that it comes before us at the next meeting for review. And it continues if we, at that point in time, maybe then it goes to license and permits and we take our normal 2 weeks. But if we're not happy with it at that point, or they don't come to some conclusion, then yes, he piles the chairs up. I'm happy to do whatever it would take.
Okay. Councilor Devlin.
I would just like to say that a condition of my yes vote to the second temporary license would be that license agreement, signed license agreement, is delivered to us, either by the applicant or the Parks Department, one of the two. Because I won't agree to this 2 weeks from now if I don't get that copy of this is like a liquor license. You got to give a copy of the lease, proof of legal right to occupy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote on this emergency preamble, please.
So roll call vote on Communication 29, Emergency Preamble, needing 8. Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien is absent. Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Council President Connell?
Yes.
Emergency Preamble passes, leaving...
And we'll move on to Communication 29.
29.
Go for it.
So roll call on 29, if I could ask, Mr. President. So this is a motion to approve.
I'm looking for a motion. I'll solicit a motion.
Motion to amend.
Or approve with the conditions.
A motion to approve with amendment.
Should be
Is
15
that, or do you
days.
want to do the?
Well, let's
Let's ask the sponsor state his motion, please. Councilor Zede, was that you?
I'm going to motion to approve,
Okay.
and then you can motion to amend.
Okay.
Motion to,
motion approved, second by Tontar.
There's a second by Councilor Tantar. Councilor Zede, you're recognized.
So I'm going to ask the clerk for some help here. So if we approve this, is the with a 14-day expiration, is the assumption that the applicant will file a new application prior to next Tuesday to go into our next packet with a new number? What would you think would be the
I've been
smoothest?
thinking how you could do it. You could do it several ways. You could do a motion to approve, subject to the clerk receiving and disseminating that license that Councilor Devlin is looking for. You could do a motion to approve for a period of 14 days. You could, in addition, leave the matter on the table, because you won't have it here if you don't leave it on the table.
I don't want to dispose of it.
Or refer it to committee.
Sure.
On the table, or so you
So-
can have it to discuss in 14 days.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Don't put it on the
We have a motion to
Sorry.
approve.
Motion to amend.
Thank you.
To add an expiration date of May 14th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time.
Further amendment before you put it on.
Let's get one amendment on the floor, then we'll discuss it.
So motion to approve with an expiration date, May 14th, 11:59 p.m.
Motion to
And
amend.
second, that may I recommit this back to license and permits with the stipulation being that the application is not considered complete until the park's license.
He's going to have to file a renewal on the 15th day. He's going to have to come back with a new application.
I'm trying to figure out the smoothest way.
Is there a second to that amendment?
The amendment on the time anyways, let's just do that one first.
Which is the 14 days. There's a second.
If I may,
Discussion, please,
friendly
Councilor
amendment.
Ackerman.
Yeah, friendly amendment. Why don't you say, so, motion to amend for 14-day duration with the ability to renew before the expiration. And then, that way, and then we'll eventually send it back to the table. But I have a different amendment after that one.
I have two choices.
So that's friendly. Sure. Yes, yep.
So, might I add, Councilor, is it your vision that he renews by filing anew?
No, he just notes that he wants to renew it.
Within 14 days, at the next meeting? Okay.
Councilor Genta?
I don't want to be a stickler, but if we give him a 14-day permit, it expires. On the 15th day, he should just fill out the same permit and check renew.
That's going to take 2 more weeks.
If he has all, I don't know, if tabling it, I don't think is a good idea, and how can you send something back to committee that you've already approved?
I'll ask the clerk for an interpretation here.
I mean, that would be a first.
We have approved things. We have approved things in part.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and we're bifurcating it. We're approving it short term, but you're keeping the substance of the matter in committee, and then you can remove it out of committee at the next meeting to look at whether you're going to extend it for a full 2 years.
Full 1 year. On the first.
Or 1 year, if you wish.
Well, it's an initial, so it's
2
1
year.
year.
Is the
Yes, you're right.
First year.
First
time
year
is 1 year.
You're right.
So what is the suggestion, Mr. Clerk?
I thought I made it.
You may, because none of us
I
can.
I would approve it, as Councilor Eigenman said, and I would also refer it to committee. I don't, we've never done that before. I don't see any reason why you can't. We have the ability to make our own rules or waive it. If you want to waive the rules, make that part of it, that's even cleaner.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yeah, I have an idea. Why don't we just approve it for a 14-day probationary period, subject to a vote in 2 weeks' time for the remainder of the term.
Waive the rules and require second reading, sort of thing?
No. We're approving it for a
okay.
14-day probationary period, and we're going to have it on. We're going to have a second vote in 2 weeks' time on the remainder of the term. So that would be 1 year minus 14 weeks, 14 days. Sorry. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Close enough.
Okay, Councilor Vogel?
So I hear it, and then it's incumbent upon us to receive the documentation.
Yeah.
We have the 2 weeks to review it. We come back here at the next city council meeting. We bring it. Where are we bringing it from? From committee?
Where is it?
We're taking it back out of committee, Mr. Clerk? Would that be?
Well, that's the problem. Where is it? It's not on the floor. You're not tabling it. You don't want to table it.
Oh, I see.
So
Sorry,
it-
we're not sending it to committee for a hearing. We're sending it just so we can bring it out again. in 2
Yeah,
weeks.
I think you need to send it to committee too.
All right, so then in 2 weeks, between now and the next meeting, we get the documentation. We do whatever research we want with it as soon as we can, and in 2 weeks, we continue, we approve it for the rest of the year.
Respect, it's in committee, so if you want to have a committee meeting, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
That
was.
probably makes sense. So I think to reiterate, it's a motion to approve for a license for a period of 14 days until May 14th at 11:59 p.m. and sending it to License and Permits Committee.
Well, when's next city council meeting?
14th.
Excuse me.
It is the 14th, so
I
that
believe,
night.
excuse me, I believe Councilor Devlin had his hand up.
Oh,
Do you defer?
Councilor Earls gave me this has to go to committee. That's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
that's right.
It's going to committee.
and it will be.
Okay?
Councilor Earls?
My only fear is, are we going to get the licensing agreement that night?
No.
There's no time to discuss. So then we'll be without a permit, so now we got to close up shop while we're waiting for the licensing, because I'm not going to look at it for 5 seconds before the meeting and go, oh yeah, we're all good. So it's incumbent on somebody, I don't think the council, to get us that in our hands sooner than later.
Let me comment on that, if I may, from the chair. I suspect that someone is going to tell the applicant
Who is here?
to satisfy all of
He does
the
have to agree.
council objections or questions before this comes again before us in 2 weeks. And if that applicant is savvy, that applicant will actually do that and inform the members before we convene again on this matter. Councilor Tantar.
I think I'm speaking to the amendment, which is 14 days. Why don't we just do it for 28 days? I think this is we're approving something for 14 days. We're also sending something we've approved for 14 days to the committee, all right? And saying that it's in committee to consider the 1 year minus 14 days. Why don't we just give him 28 days? He can come in, file another application with more information, one would hope, in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, we give him the next year. Can we do that?
What is the will of the council? Councilor Devlin.
I don't know why we would do that. I just want to have it sent to committee. I want to have a committee meeting, hearing on it, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Where we can, at that point or before that, I want the license agreement so I can read it, and then we can discuss it at a committee meeting before May 14th, and then we can approve it for let's not, this works so long as we have a committee meeting and we get the license agreement for that committee meeting.
Councilor,
I was going to say that, I know the license agreement with the Parks Department has been floating around for a month. We asked for it 6 months ago, so he doesn't need 28 days. He needs 24 hours to get it to us. So, I'd rather, let's just get this over with on May 14th, please.
So, Mr. President, on the floor right now is a motion to amend to extend the license for 14 days and refer the matter to license and permits. That's a motion to amend.
Correct.
There was a friendly
Excuse me,
amendment about
Councilor Tantar?
about renewal, right? That's not in there. So it's granting it for 14 days
Probation.
with the opportunity for renewal in 14 days. This is the reason
I think that's correct.
That's what I intended.
So now we're going to move the question on the amendment.
I hope so.
So, does everyone know what we're going to be voting on here?
I'm voting yes.
It's 14 days with an opportunity to renew at that time, following a public hearing that the
Of license and permits.
License and Permits Committee will conduct so that we will gather additional information to inform the decision that's going to take place 2 weeks from tonight. What else?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from tonight, exactly.
Yep.
Let's go to a roll call then, please.
Yes.
This is on the motion to amend. Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
So motion,
Motion to approve as amended?
correct.
Wait. Motion to amend. Oh,
That-
another one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
another amendment.
that's a motion to amend this time. We've now approved the
Yeah, it's just
amendment.
on the certificate of liability, it says, city of Newburyport is additionally insured if required by written contract. That's not our policy, we have to be named on this. So, just a motion to amend, city of Newburyport must be named as additional insured. Second.
All right, so we have approved the initial amendment to make it 14 days. The matter's still open, and we have a second amendment from Councilor Eigenman. Could you clarify that, please, for the clerk and for the chair?
The insurance policy must name the city of Newburyport, that's mandatory. That's a motion to amend.
Without the if required by written contract.
Right.
Good, okay.
Is there a second to that amendment? Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion
Now,
to
back to the
approve.
original motion, which was to approve this license with the conditions we've previously acted upon. Does everyone understand what we're going to vote on? Roll call vote, please.
Is there a second?
It's the motion to approve is amended and amended. Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls? Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, where are we? That's just communications, huh? We're at appointments.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I think we're heading back to communication.
Oh, we have two more, I'm sorry, that were carried over from the consent agenda.
Communication 33, which is a letter from Rob Germanara regarding the matters heretofore spoken about at public comment.
Motion to refer to licenses and permits.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I dimly remember this from 3 years ago. So, look, I believe the city council is the licensing agency for a flammables permit. I believe. All I care about is I want the taxes to be paid, especially for a repeat offender. You know, we just went over this for a guy that's trying to open seating. You know, if you want a public benefit, if you want to use something that's a public benefit, you should be doing your part for the public. So if he hasn't paid his taxes, they pay the taxes. So I want to refer it to committee because I want to investigate why aren't the taxes paid. We have a statute, an ordinance directly on point. You know, it's not like we're being mean or something. We're supposed to collect these taxes, and we're not doing our job.
Thank you, sir. My memory, if it serves me correctly, this is the second time that this particular business has been in this situation where they haven't paid their taxes, but they're also looking for the city to approve something for them. So, I may be wrong, but I don't think so.
Additional comment, questions? Nope. So the motion was?
Refer to licenses
and permits, and it was seconded by?
Councilor Khan.
Good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is referred. I think we have number 36 now, right? Communication 36?
Communication 36 is a 3-page communication on the proposed zoning amendments that have to do with marijuana retail sales and marijuana without retail sales, cultivation, so-called.
Motion to send to planning and development.
Second. Planning and development. Is there discussion? Councilor Shan.
So now that things are about to start getting real and we're going to start looking at locations in the city to start putting dispensaries, I know there are 2 locations in this amendment, in this communication being discussed, but I know there are other locations in the city we'd like to think about. The question that's been coming up lately is, do we have the opportunity to put recreational marijuana back on a ballot for the city to revote? Since now they're starting to see where the locations of the dispensaries could be. And one of the locations is in a part of the city that didn't vote for it. So that's my question.
And I second the thought of putting retail sales of marijuana on the ballot again. You know, the proposed district as amended here is pretty much my ward, the only ward to vote against retail marijuana. But here we are. I don't speak for the Ward 6 councilor, but when I showed him the map, he had one word, and that was no.
Further discussion, Councilor Khan.
Yeah, I actually just want to add something else to that. I also talked to other residents, and I do feel like there is an opportunity to start thinking about bringing this back up to the residents to vote on. But the other thing is, on May 16th, the Newburyport Youth Services is going to be presenting the Youth Asset Survey results, which talks specifically about risk factors that youth themselves are talking about, and access, and what their patterns have been of behavior, and what they feel like the community is available to or thinking about for them. So I think this is really timely for us to think about other aspects related to this, the recreational marijuana. So I also support thinking about ways we can get that back to the residents.
Further discussion. Councilor Z.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think some people are waiting for us, and you know, there are. I understand that cultivation and retail are different, but in a sense, they're sort of inextricably linked because everybody's waiting to see what we're going to do with all of it. So, you know, expediency is important here. We have some state set timelines, but we also have some sort of general, our own deadlines to kind of meet the needs of the community. So if it feels like a ballot question is probably the direction we should be heading in, or at least thinking about, with a specific set of locations defined. And just to be clear, I don't mean that that has to go in the ballot question, but we should be able to tell people what we're going to do, if we're going to do it, and if it's going to happen. So there's obviously a lot of details to figure out, but that's my direction with it. And I think I've said that in the last couple of meetings as well. Thank you.
Discussion. Hearing none, the motion is to refer to planning and development. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we can move on to appointments.
It's second reading. Appointment number 22, Ron Ziemba, 15 Lime Street, Unit 1, Historic Commission until 5/1/2021. And Paul Hogg, 4 Colton Drive, Special Police Officer until 3/1/2020. Following our reappointments, second reading. Appointment 24, Captain Johnny Walker, 64A Boardman Street, Assistant Harbor Master, 3/1/2021. Appointment 25, Karen Popkin, 49 Boardman Street, Parks Commission, 5/1/2023. Appointment 26, Catherine Harry, 100 High Street, Tree Commission as an alternate, 5/1/2019. Appointment number 27, Kim Kudum, 44 Hale Street, a full member of the Tree Commission, 5/1/2021. Appointment number 28, Jane Niebling, 45 Kemble Street, Tree Commission, 6/1/2021. And Kevin Hunt, 14 10th Street, Veterans Agent until 4/1/2019. And lastly, Barry J. McBride, 5 Pine Street, Assistant Wiring Inspector until 5/1/2019.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
En banc or individually?
Collectively. Thank you, Mr. President.
Second.
And second. Then we'll take a roll call on that. If there's no discussion, let's see if there's discussion first.
Motion approved collectively. Councilor Vogel? Yes. Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Agaman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Khan? 10-1, motion passes.
Orders?
First order is as follows.
I can't hear. Sorry, pull it out.
Order number 25, handicap space, Merrill Street, 1 space at 17 Merrill Street until March 30th, 2020. Submitted, Councilor Shan.
Send it to
Motion to refer to planning, public safety.
second.
Further discussion?
Sure.
Councilor Shan.
So just to clarify, this is an order for a handicap space at 17 Merrill Street. The family has a disabled adult child who relies on a van to go to and from work from his home. And due to some significant construction in the neighborhood, the van has not been able to get to their door recently. So this would alleviate some of the issues they've had recently, and I think it would help. So,
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's been enacted. Next, ordinance 26.
26, similar, Ting Street, 1 space, 29 Ting Street until June 30th, 2028. Councilor Tonto.
Motion to refer to public safety.
Amazing.
Discussion. Councilor Tonto.
We approved the temporary sign, handicap sign here in the last sentence. The individual is an older person who's going through a number of surgeries. Temporary, because there was also construction in the neighborhood, hoping to be able to cover, and now needs a handicap space permanently.
Yeah, I just, as it goes in the committee, that was my question. I thought we always typically do 2 years, so I just noted that the 10 years, is it because it's a long-term resident, and if they moved or something, we would repeal it, I guess is the idea? Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Order 27.
27 is an authorization to increase the spending limit for the engineering services account up to $130,000, submitted Councilor Tontar.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ordinance 28. Ordinance 28?
28 is also submitted by Councilor Tontar. It is an order that establishes revolving funds in certain departments pursuant to 44, Section 53E and a half. I don't know if you'd like me to read them as going to committee.
I don't know if that's necessary. Does anyone want any reading of it? We'll do it if you want. Is there a motion?
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's done. Ordinance 29.
Order 29 is also submitted by Councilor Tontar. It is pursuant to the Municipal Modernization Act for the purpose of establishing a parking receipts reserve for appropriation fund to be called the paid parking fund. Further order, the balance be transferred into the paid parking fund at the end of fiscal 2018. Councilor Tontar.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Moved and referred to Budget and Finance, seconded to Budget and Finance. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Order 30.
Order 30 is accepting a gift with gratitude from Jim McCarthy, Salt Box Financial, in the amount of $1,000 for the painting of city park signposts to be placed into the park's gift and donation account. Submitted Councilor Tontar.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Order 31.
31 is a parking order. The street is Tickham Street. Restriction is no parking on the westerly side from Pleasant Street to Merrimack Street and shall expire on May 1st, 2019. Submitted Councilor Eigenman.
Motion to refer to Public Safety. Second.
Moved and seconded. Public Safety. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? In Public Safety. Order 32.
Likewise is a parking order for Merrimack Street. Restriction is no parking on the southerly side from Tickham Street running in a westerly direction for a distance of 180 feet to expire on May 1st, 2019. Submitted Councilor Eigenman.
Motion to refer to Public Safety.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is in Public Safety. Ordinances.
The second reading of ordinance 2. It is to amend the code of ordinances regarding health and sanitation. It is the commonly referred to as the noise ordinance. It's Chapter 8, Division 1. Chapter 8, Article 4, Nuisances, Division 1. Jointly submitted, Councilor Eigenman and Junta.
Motion approved on second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? No discussion, then we'll take a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, the second was?
Second was Jim, I believe.
Thank you.
Charlie Heaton to the punch.
All right, who wants his name in the minutes? Okay, Councilor Tontar.
Motion approved, second reading. Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Ryan?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Collins?
Yes.
10-1.
Ordinance 13.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ordinance 13.
Is it flying by fast and furious?
As dated April 30th, it is a ordinance to amend Chapter 2 on finance with respect to the departmental revolving funds, specifically Section 2, 394, talks to purpose, expenditure limitations, interest, procedures, and reports, and it also includes a long table. Submitted, Councilor Tontar.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance.
Second.
Moved and seconded to Budget and Finance. Discussion. Councilor Z.
Just a quick question for the sponsor. I don't remember doing this in previous years where I remember doing the other one with the limits, but I'm just curious as to why there's two. I thought last year we just did the limits because the funds are already established. Are there changes that I missed?
There is.
Okay, because I couldn't, maybe it's because I just.
Mass monetization there.
So it's the parking.
Specifies a change, so like we just did two. We just referred an earlier order as well to consider revolving funds. Am I right on that? Maybe I need some help on that.
Perhaps the finance director wants to answer some questions. Go for it.
In the Mass Municipal Modernization Act, they changed the statute for revolving funds. So now the local legislative body needs to accept the funds via an ordinance or bylaw rather than just doing an annual order as we've done in the past. You'll still approve the spending limits each year, but this will be a one-time approval for these funds via the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. But there are no new funds, right? These are all the same ones minus the parking
Same
fund.
list. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Good questions. This is just a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's in budget and finance. Where are we?
Ordinance 14.
14, I believe.
Which is submitted by Councilor Argument. It is an amendment to the Building Demolition Fund with respect to maybe specific dollars, features, and some timing.
Motion for planning bill. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Planning and development. Ordinance 15.
Ordinance 15 is a zoning map and table of use regulation change submitted by Councilor Connell with respect to marijuana established without retail sales, industrial park, I-1, I-1B.
What is the will of the council?
Motion to refer to planning and development.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Councilor Earls.
Well, you made the motion. Go ahead. You made the motion.
I was just going to pose this question. Do we think committee of the whole is required for the purposes of posting, just in case 7 people show up to the meeting? I'm getting some nods, so I will make my motion to amend to planning and development and committee of the whole, just in case.
So you're amending your motion. Is the second?
Second.
Going to agree with that amendment? Motion? Okay. Councilor Earls.
That's where I was going when I raised my hand, honestly, because now we're talking about perhaps council putting a referendum citywide to discuss this. Then I think everyone should have input when it's coming down to the actual zoning ordinances that we're proposing. So I appreciate that. I would like to be able to speak during those meetings.
Councilor Genta?
Just for clarification, this ordinance 15 is about cultivation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the discussion about a ballot question is about retail and not about cultivation.
Right. On both.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Eigenman.
One last piece of information. So we've actually advertised this for hearing. So if we do, just so everyone knows, it's going to be May 16th on a Wednesday, starting at 6:30.
Yep.
Thank you.
7 p.m.
Yeah.
Please stand corrected. Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those,
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a point. May 16th is that Newburyport Youth Services presentation, which I am going to be attending. So I don't know if cultivation and retail sales will be addressed in both meetings. I do hope we can just think about some of the counselors attending that, because I do think that a lot of good information and very insightful will be provided to us about the community that are going to be targeted by the second one in particular.
Councilor Eigenman.
Well, I'll work with Bonnie Sontag, the chair of the planning board, to see how we can, maybe we could set a little bit later in her calendar. But I also intend, that's why it's at 7, because I'm going to be at that thing at 6:32. Yeah. So
okay,
we'll figure it out.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Councilor. Ordinance 16.
Ordinance 16 is also a zoning ordinance amendment, table of use regulations with respect to marijuana, submitted also by Councilor
Me.
Councilor Me.
Motion to refer to Budget and Finance, Planning and Development and Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. It's the budget. I'm sorry. It's planning and development. I'm sorry. There was a no?
There is. I got one.
Committee items. Budget and Finance.
Motion to remove order number 20, parking fees as amended in committee.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councilor Tantar.
So yes, the Budget and Finance Committee met on this, and we had, we started with a public hearing, in which the public was invited to speak, and just found my notes. We had 3 individuals who spoke to it, Laurel Algrove, Jane Snow, and Patricia Daniels, who were concerned, Laurel Algrove was concerned about extending the hours from 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. Was concerned that it might be detrimental to downtown business. Jane Snow was concerned that an increase in resident parking permits would result in fewer people going downtown, also detrimental to downtown businesses. Patricia Daniel was concerned and opposed to the increased cost of parking in Newburyport and the extended hours. We closed the public hearing portion of it. Oops. Thank you. How'd that drop off? Sorry. We had some general discussion on parking fees, and then we decided to proceed through the order line item by line item. So I'll make this quick. First of all, the first line item, resident annual permit paid parking lots. I had come in with a $25 fee. Councilor Froese moved that it be reduced to $15. We had some discussion on this, which we may reproduce tonight, and that was voted 2-1 in favor. I was the negative vote on that. The next change, which passed 3-0, was to remove the parking garage from the line that starts hourly fee for Waterfront Trust lot, NRA East and West lots, State Street lot, and parking garage, and to put the parking lot line on its own line so that it would stand out and we could change that fee in the future if we wished. Finally, there was a motion to reduce the on-street resident annual parking permit to 0 from $5, and that passed, I believe, 2-1.
I thought it was 3-0.
It
Was
was 2-1.
It
It was
was 2-1.
2-1 with
I was
council.
the one.
We're the no,
that
okay.
You voted in opposition. All right.
The last line.
So then finally, the committee voted to recommend approval 2-1 with Councilor Zede voting in opposition. All right. So I'll stop there and rise later if there are any questions on this.
Other discussion. Councilor Khan.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. So fellow councilors, I have been spending a lot of time on this issue, as I'm sure all of us have. And I don't want to take a long time, but I really see us as we debate this falling into 2 categories. One is really, I think, the timing. I know that that's come up. Is this the right time to be doing this? And the second one being the specific item, the specific levels set, the parameter numbers. So let me first talk about the timing. You know, in 2011, the paid parking program was implemented, and since that time, we have been collecting data. You know, I always hear about data, and I'm an engineer, I love data. So we have been able to see, since that time, what type of uptake we've been seeing in the permits, in the meters. And in 2017, we did the first change, and that's going from 50 cents to $1. And in that, when you look at the numbers, you see that the revenue increased by 38% for the metered lots. So there's definitely a correlation in what we do in terms of bringing revenue to the city. In terms of looking at the other aspects that were not addressed in 2017, so we really just targeted the metered lots and didn't look at anything else. So to me, it's timely that we take an assessment of the paid parking program that we committed to. So in looking at the data, I thought to break down in terms of revenue where they're coming from, what are the main sources. And so right now, the paid parking permits are 10% of our revenue. So as we talk about the levels, let's really just think about 10% of the revenue of really getting the gains. The fines, the residential parking fines, are actually at 40% or thereabouts, and the significant portion are from the metered lots. And so, again, as we talk about this, the reason I wanted to bring from 25 to 15, I think I heard during public comment from somebody that, what's the basis? Do we have some analysis on the term or the number that we're coming up with? And it's really hard to. I mean, we have the data from the number of permits. There's almost 10,000 permits, and I asked the city clerk that we have about 16,500 registered vehicles in Newburyport, of which 2/3 have permits. And then in terms of processing, that is, even though $5 was supposed to break even, honestly, I think that number is arbitrary, because if you think about 10,000 permits being processed with 40% of them free, you have people 2 years, it's not like it has a time period. You are always processing. Someone's always filling out an application. You are spending time on it. So I urge, as we debate this further, to really think of what we're trying to accomplish. And to me, the revenue that's focused on that downtown area is really critical here. I'll stop there later.
Councilor Zede.
I'll kick it off. I will probably not be brief, but I'll try. I was the dissenting vote on this, so I just thought I would break down my comments into three groups. The first thing is, I do want to address what I consider some of the fake news around the parking garage, because there's a lot of questions out there. Everybody's seen some data, maybe not seen all the data. The first one is that somehow our existing parking system is a failure. So we're here tonight because the parking system isn't working. The resident passes at $5 are a problem because they're not breaking even and the whole world is coming to a halt. Not true. Not true. The parking system has been a success. It made $450,000 of profit last year. Profit. Bottom line profit. It's been successful in years before that, to the tune of actually building up $1 million current balance in our parking system fund. $1 million. If your street needs to be paved, or you've ever wondered why we're not doing more with the schools, maybe we would ask what we're doing to do with that $1 million. So that's the first piece of fake news, that somehow we're here tonight because the parking system's a disaster and we're fixing something. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not perception that this is paying for the garage. We're here because of the garage. Other people may dispute that. They're welcome to have their own view. The second one is that we are in dire straits, that we are absolutely at the limit and we need more parking. And again, everybody's entitled to read a report in their own way. I read Mr. Burke's report closely several times. I actually think it makes a pretty good case that you don't need a garage at all and that you don't need more parking. What we have actually is a parking management problem where we have certain lots that are underutilized and we have other lots that are overutilized. Because I agree, if you go down to Green Street any given day at about 11 a.m., you would believe that we are just up to our ears. We have no more capacity, we're done. One of the most instructive things I learned about parking from John Burke, who is an expert, is that you do your counts in May and October, the busy shoulder seasons, because those are the times when you want to assess the capacity you have. You don't do it on a weekend in August because there is no community that can build enough parking to handle a peak week. It just doesn't exist. Whether we built the 207, the 244, the 350, or a 3000, there are some weekends where we're never going to be able to build, nor would we want to build because we have to carry it for the rest of the year. So that's the second piece of fake news. The third one is that a parking garage is the only way to an open waterfront. This one got thrown into the whole mix. There's no other way. If you want to have an open waterfront, your back's against the wall, do a garage or you're dead. Wrong. Again, this is my opinion. It's fake news. We could do a surface lot. We could replicate spaces. And again, if you take that in context with maybe the need for more parking, you can consider it. And also to note that there are other ways to get more parking. The quickest of which isn't easy, is to negotiate deals with churches, banks, and so forth that have very underutilized lots in the evening. Number 4, that $15 or $25 is great and will stick. It's not going to stick, okay? It's just not. Our consultant has recommended $100 for a reason. I've said this in the meeting at that time. We're not chasing the 10% of revenue. We're chasing an overall parking system change. I stood on this floor and I actually said last year when we voted on the garage, it'll probably go to $25 next year. And I feel like I was clairvoyant at the time, but clearly I'm not, and that it will go up from there. And the point is not to gain an extra $10 from people or $20, it's to have attrition and to reduce the number until we get into a situation where almost everybody is paying for parking on an hourly basis, or they are paying a rate that is more consistent with the employee rate. And you'll see that in other communities. The final two is that this is going to improve traffic. And unfortunately, we haven't done that study. So I get very upset when I hear people make conclusions about studies we haven't done and then ignore the conclusions of other studies, as we're poised to do tonight. We're ignoring the $100, something I've been admonished for in the past, and move from there. As far as the finances go, the people who park downtown have to pay for the garage. And if the people who park downtown are more residents than anybody else, then it's the residents that have to pay for the garage. That's a simple function. You cannot have it both ways. You can't say that we've only got 6 months out of the year to make money in downtown businesses and we're struggling, but yet at the same time we can charge as much money as we want for downtown parking and the market is boundless. Interestingly, for me, one of the biggest and most important pieces of data has been watching the dollar propagate through the system, if you will. Whether it's that it's a short-term change and people have squirreled out into the neighborhoods, as the Ward 2 councilor might argue, or they've simply stopped coming, we will find out. But the point is, they do change. There is elasticity, and we had a little bit of debate about how much elasticity, and everybody has their whole point. So my personal opinion is this is one of those things where we can sit and argue about the pro forma all day long, but we're all just picking numbers, and I don't see any reason why residents should have to bear this cost. The final part of my comment is just a little bit about vision for Newburyport. I've said this before, but I think as a counselor myself, it's easy to get tunnel vision. Every week we get a packet, we have 10 things, they're all given a number, and we just look at that one thing. But we do owe our residents, I think, a vision for Newburyport, and this is an excellent example of where we talk about that, and this is a forward-looking statement. If you love where you live, as I do, then stop trying to change absolutely everything about it. It makes no sense to me when I hear that. If your desire is to live in a tourist haven where everything is based on tourism, then please don't stay in Newburyport. I don't want that for Newburyport, and I feel entitled to say that and have that thought. This is a residential town. We have proven that actually from several different variables. So on one hand, we get 90% of our property taxes and our tax revenues from residences. Some of whom were tonight arguing about trash collection. The city council has endorsed that. We just, in a couple of years ago with 40R, we rezoned a large part of our business park to residential. The largest property owner downtown, who shall go unnamed, has proposed to build essentially 90% residential with a little bit of token retail and maybe a hotel, but seemingly not chomping at the bit to do so. So what is that? What's the point of saying that? Well, when it's a residential town and you get 90%, that means it is only the residents that are available to cover shortfalls and to cover projects. There isn't a grant in the world that will necessarily cover 100% of every cost. So you need to be aware, and this is why this is a forward-looking statement, when these opportunities come, think about where the rest of the money is going to come from. There is always only one answer, and that answer is residents. And it's actually kind of uncovered a disturbing trend where now we want to have everything as pay as you use, as well as, subscribe, pay your property taxes, and then anytime you want to use anything, pay for that too, as you use. I don't think you can have it both ways. You can have one or the other, and I think this is an outgrowth of that discussion. And the last thing I'll say is I still can't believe that we are building a parking garage that has 2 entrances that don't connect, and we've invited a bus stop into our historic downtown, something we stand around here and say we're going to vow and fall on our swords to protect all the time. I still can't believe it. So I oppose this. I don't think it's good for Newburyport. I don't think it's good for the downtown businesses, and I think we could have addressed some of these things in other ways, and I will stand with that tonight. Councilor Tonto.
So I want to back up a little before 2011 and talk very much about the vision for the city. What started the process which ended up with a garage, was the desire to take parking off the central waterfront. The central waterfront is a phenomenal asset to the city. It's an asset to the residents who live here, but it's also an asset to the downtown, all right? And to the businesses that locate here, and more on that, all right? The problem with the central waterfront, quite frankly, are those dirt parking spaces, all right? I can tell you the number of people who I've talked to, both who are residents and from outside the city, who have said, get rid of those parking lots, all right? In the summer, the waterfront is a magnet to the city. There's no question about it, all right? From people outside the city. Not so much in the winter. The parking in the waterfront is cold, the wind blows, people don't like to, it gets dark at 4:15 at night, and so people don't like to park there. One of the most interesting things about the John Burke study that I heard was the studies that asked people about their perception of distance. So walking from here, let's say, to State Street, you ask people how far that is, and if it's dark, if it's cold, if it's windy, if it's inhospitable, if there aren't good crosswalks, if there aren't good lights, all right, people will say, that's about 2 miles, all right? However, if you change that around and you have a clear walking path, lights, all right, if it's hospitable, all right, then people say, well, that's a quarter mile, it's an easy walk. So the perception, and one of the interesting things about the parking study is the fact that distances change. They change, two factors. One, seasonally they change, and secondly, they change when the sun sets. All right? And one of the interesting, one of the things that I took out of the study is that the waterfront lots, all right, especially the east lot right now, is not particularly attractive place to locate, and we have to address that. So that's the first point. And so if you're going to take parking spaces, the businesses downtown screamed about losing the spaces on the waterfront. All right, you're going to put us out of business if we lose those spaces, and that's what got us to the point where we decided to build a garage. All right, and so the garage enables us to increase a little bit the number of spaces we have downtown, but also to remove spaces from the waterfront park, enlarge the park, improve the park, and make it more amenable for both residents and for visitors to the city. All right. Now, you know, one of the dichotomies that has emerged in this discussion that is, on the one hand, there are visitors to the city, and on the other hand, there are residents of the city. And that's not a dichotomy that I think is useful. I think there are a number of factors why I love Newburyport and why people locate here. One is certainly proximity to the ocean. The second is a large number of historic structures in the city that have been preserved, the historic downtown. But the third factor is that it does have a downtown. Our businesses, our local, you know, our downtown businesses are critical, all right? Critical in attracting people to want to live here. Because people want to come here, they want to be able to walk around, they like the vitality and vibrancy of downtown. So one of the factors in drawing people here is the fact that we do have that downtown. It's our responsibility to keep it vibrant. And I've said this before, one of the key factors in determining the economic vibrancy of a community is whether or not it exports services to outside of itself. That's the difference between a bedroom community and a community that is a business center. And Newburyport has always played a role of exporting, whether as a shipping transshipment point, all right, originally, more industry in the late 19th, early 20th century, dead zone, all right, and now what we do is we export services in the way of retail, drinking and eating establishments, all right? So those are export goods, and that makes the community stronger, all right? So having said that, now back to the Pricing, first of all, I neglected to say that I want to thank the Parking Advisory Committee because essentially what I put before the council was at the recommendation of the Parking Advisory Committee. All right? And that was after consideration of the parking study. Certainly the pricing we have to pay for downtown parking, including the garage, all right? And I think the pro forma shows that we're well within, we can do that. But there's another function for pricing, all right? Pricing, parking is scarce. And it's particularly scarce, as the study showed, certain times, all right? And free parking on the street is scarce, all right? And so pricing of parking is a rationing device. That's the role that prices play. They ration, right? Scarce goods. All right, and so for one thing that you see here is we're charging $1.50 for individuals parking in the Green Street lot, and $1 for the lots further away. Now that could change. We'll have to see once we get data, and we will have good data with license recognition. We can change the pricing, but that's a good point. The premium parking in the Green Street lot, and maybe the West NRA, what will become now NRA, what would become waterfront trust lots, those are relatively premium spots at first, right? We're keeping parking free on the street, all right? And this measure doesn't address it, but we also have to consider whether or not to more strictly enforce the 2-hour limit on the streets, all right? And also to enforce the 3-hour limit in the Green Street lot. So rather than there being sort of this conflict and decision that has to be made between visitors to the city and residents of the city, I think what has emerged, and I've been getting emails on it, and we need more work on it. I don't think the Parking Advisory Committee actually discussed it. On the one hand, you have businesses that are located downtown who would prefer to locate in relatively close proximity to their businesses. Usually second-story businesses that are not so reliant on walk-in traffic. And you have businesses that are very, very reliant on walk-in traffic. And that's something I don't think we necessarily have solved, that we'll have to work on. And that's where you get the conflict on enforcement of the law on 2 hours, whether or not we would have an ordinance, for instance, that said if you park on the street for 2 hours and move your car, do the parking shuffle, you have to move 100 or 200 or 300 feet away from where you first parked, which the technology will allow us to look at. What you have before you, I think, is the beginning of a process that is a step toward assuring that downtown Newburyport will stay vibrant. That's the intent. That's why we built the garage. That's so that we can improve the waterfront and that we can keep the city vibrant at least until the oceans overwhelm us.
Further discussion, Councilor Ackerman.
Motion to amend. Motion to amend the resident annual permit from $15 to $25.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion of that amendment.
Yes, I mean, I wasn't expecting so much debate on the philosophy of the garage and all that. I mean, that's water under the bridge. But I want to. I hope that we don't see things black and white. You know, some of the words that were expressed include everything, all. This totality. The parking consultant doesn't want anybody to have a parking permit. There's nothing wrong with the parking system. I don't think it's so black and white. And again, we're a legislature. We're not scientists. We're not trying to do a physics experiment. I mean, we're setting policy. We're trying to manage, as Councilor Tantar said, scarce resources. And most of this parking, I dare say 95% of these spaces we're talking about are in Ward 2. So, it's very facile for us to say, well, the scientists would never study August. You don't study for August, you study for the shoulder seasons. And I had this discussion with John Burke, but people are human beings are involved here. And just as merchants waited all winter for good weather to come so they can start making some money, And so therefore, the summer season is vitally important to them. You have residents in Ward 2. I'd say the most conflicted place would be Garden Street and Otis Place by the Dalton Club, where every day, all during the year, they're competing with people that are parking on their streets to get to work. And so the city's trying to do a balance and say, how do we accommodate everybody? And then the summer comes, and then you get an influx of tens of thousands of people who don't live here, and then the problem gets exponentially more difficult. So it's not about, yes, the timing. Why are we doing this now? Well, we should have done this years ago. I mean, I remember I came on in 2014. The parking system was only 3 years old then, and the rates hadn't changed. We finally, doubled the rate, but it only went to $1. So this is long overdue that we change these rates. Now, the perception we heard in public comment absolutely is you're doing this to pay for the garage. And I beg to differ because we know what the cost of the garage is. The cost of the garage is $400,000, and we generate more than that. So we don't need to do this to pay for the garage. We need to do this because we're trying to manage a scarce resource downtown. You say, well, what's broken? What's broken is you have 10,000 permits in a city of 18,000 souls, and that's a ratio of something like 15-to-1 to the number of parking spaces. The other cities that, when they have all year freebie permits, they're doing maybe 2-to-1, 3-to-1. We're at 15-to-1. So it's not that I think, oh my God, I can make more money. It's that I'm thinking that's too many permits. And I know from talking to residents, they often have a permit for every single one of their vehicles. It's too low. The price is too low. The system is not working. Now you think, well, what do I care? Well, if you live in Ward 2, you care. Because it was alluded to by the Ward 1 counselor, absolutely there's bleeding out into the neighborhoods. It's human nature. You think, all right, well, I can pay $1 here, or I can just, go 2 blocks to the west and park in front of somebody's house. So what I've been doing, and before me, Councilor Earls, when he was the ward counselor, we've been sticking our finger in the dike, plugging these holes with resident parking permits. We start on Essex Street, and then it goes to Orange Street, and that's got to stop. There's something wrong if we keep having to do that seat of our pants, fly by night, make it up. We need a rational system. Again, please don't let the good be the enemy, the perfect be the enemy of the good. I agree. I wish we didn't live in a world where you had to pay fees for services on top of your real property tax. I lived for a long time in California where that's much worse than it is here. Much worse. I mean, here, if you apply for a special permit, to do something with your house, maybe it's a couple $100. I mean, just to get in the door in San Francisco, it'll be $20,000 just to file the application because they've gotten away from property tax and they've gone to fees. So I hear you, but it's not realistic. We can't raise the property taxes anymore. We have to use other methods to cover costs. So be realistic. I'm making my motion because $15 is not enough. It's just not enough. That's free parking all year. And you think, well, why 25? How did I get that number? Well, because we compare it to other cities. What sounds like a real number? What sounds like real money? Before you write that check, when do you hesitate? You're not going to hesitate for a $5 check. You're not going to hesitate for even a $10. Even 15 looks thin. If we're going to do it, do 25. I fully understand you wouldn't jump up to 100 because we're started at 5. We did that to ourselves. But also another thing we looked at was, what do other cities do? We're not even close to those other cities. Not even close. The extreme example was Lowell at 576. We're talking about 25. So I really hope we don't have black and white thinking. We looked at also the difference between what it cost a visitor. How did we get 25? If a visitor has to pay $1.50 per hour all during the year, I would say that $25 to park unlimited for a year is a great bargain. And it really can't be a fair argument against it, unless it's a philosophical argument that we should never have to pay for parking if we pay taxes. And I don't think that's fair because, as I said, we're also trying to manage a scarce resource, and the only way we can do it is pricing. So please, we've already essentially negotiated against ourselves for a decade. The original proposal years ago in 2011 was $50. We did 5. Now I'm asking we go to 25. I'm asking it not because I'm trying to generate money for the garage. That's already going to be paid for. And in fact, if we approve the reserve fund, the city council will have more control over this parking money than we ever did before. And I would absolutely support earmarking money taken from the residents' permit program and saying it cannot be used for the garage. I got no problem with that. So I want to bifurcate those issues. But this is our chance. We're not going to revisit this every year. That's not realistic. We didn't for 7 years. Please support 25 as a reasonable number. I'm giving up on the on-street parking permit because basically if you're living downtown and you have this AirSats, system, you shouldn't have to pay anything because people in outside wards are only going to pay $25. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Vogel?
Look there, calling me. Thank you. So,
was there another hand up here that I missed? I'm sorry.
No.
No?
Yeah. But my colleague to my right actually did raise her hand as well.
we're talking about amending to $25.
Right.
And so I have an opportunity to talk to a lot of people. And in about a, 30-minute session on a Friday, I talked to a number of people that came in front of me, and I did a little bit of a survey. It's very scientific. And also, we're just to remind us, we're talking about $2 and a little bit more a month. I was late for Mrs. Smiley's algebra class every day of my life, so I can't do that whole math, but it's just about $2 a month that we're talking about to be able to park downtown. 47 cents a week. $2 a month. So anyway, I just thought I'd share with you my survey. I talked to 19 people, so it's full-blown here. Out of that 19 people, the question was simply, how do you feel about spending $25 instead of $5 for a parking permit? First of all, the question was, are you a resident of Newburyport? The answer was yes. How do you feel about? So out of the 19 people, 2 said no, and 17, that math I can do, said yes. And here were some of the comments. And there was also a question, what are you going to do with the money? And there was all this discussion, as pointed out by the councilor from Ward 2, about where it goes and where it's going to, and what we're going to do with it, so forth. Here are the comments. It's a bargain, raise it all you want. $5 is ridiculously cheap. There was an interesting discussion about senior citizens. And that's sort of an old term, that we give senior citizens a break. Most of the senior citizens that live in this community live in, $800,000 condominiums. Granted, there are people that can't afford parking, and I get that. And I think that we should actually, I was going to talk about amending and giving a waiver for people that just walk into the clerk's office and say, you know what, I can't afford to pay for my parking permit. And we would just say, okay. But we would be here all night talking about that. It's completely fair. Make it $50. It's more than fair, and it's completely understandable. Those are the comments from a very brief, very scientific survey of people of this community. $2 a month is what we're asking. And to the arguments of the councilor from Ward 2, I second and third and fourth them. Thank you.
Councilor Khan.
Thank you. So I was the one that came up with that amendment for 15. And I did talk to more than 17 people. And I did go and host, I went to Dunkin' Donuts and tried to get people from Ward 5 and 6. And I really tried to tap a larger base of residents. And if it's only $2.50, then why not compromise with 15 or try to do something that would really be more helpful for all residents and not just a subset that's willing to do $50 or $100. But more than anything, it's just, I think what we're forgetting is we're really just talking about a paid parking system that we're hoping will be available to those who want to partake And that will also be able to provide some revenue for our downtown. And towards the, if you look at the pro forma that's in your binder as well, there's a portion that will go to pay off the bond, and then there's a portion that's going to be for downtown improvements. And when I talk to people about that, there are some that will say, well, that's a lot when I have 1 or 2 cars, or, I would probably just do it for 1 car. But the best thing about this is we're about to get new technology, the license plate recognition. That's going to be hopefully available as soon as we start this program, and we'll have some data. So I don't get the hastiness in jumping from 5 to 25 without trying 15 and seeing what the data is showing. We're already increasing our fines from 15 to 25. Again, I go back to the numbers, 10% revenue from permits, and we're ready to just jump to 25 without really caring that, well, people could pay 25. I mean, I did see Avengers Infinity Wars, and we paid $56 for a family of 4. And yes, I paid for that because it's Avengers. But I guess what I'm saying is when people really feel compelled to spend, they will spend on something. But going again back to a time when we're having a garage that a lot of people in the city were against. I was in favor, but there were some against it. So we're trying to balance people's perceptions, people's kind of comfort level, and what we're trying to do with our city, the vision we're talking about. So I really don't feel like this is a big ask, that we just be mindful and think about, again, the percent of revenue that's coming from this permit when we're already looking at adjusting the other categories.
Councilor Genta.
Sure, I'll take a crack at this. I voted actually against even sending this for discussion. And the reason I did is if you ask any of the city councilors from 2011, which I did, some of them are actually sitting here right now, there was a block of 6 city councilors that said there will be no paid parking in the city unless residents park for free. That's the story. That's the way it happened. And the idea is that, yes, we wanted residents to pay to prove downtown, but we always wanted to make sure the residents came first. These are the same residents that come down, they buy coffee, they go out for dinner, they go to the waterfront, they buy ice cream, they support our businesses. And so they wanted to make sure that they came first. And my question always, as we went through this, is, okay, $100, $25, $15, what is the cost to process permits so our residents can park downtown for free? That's the only number I really care about. And if it's $7.50 a car, then that's what it is. But this is the way this rolled out. And I tried to explain this to my residents because they didn't really get it. They said, Larry, we're going for $5 to $100. That seems incredible. And I said, well, that's because they want to eliminate the resident parking plan altogether. And they were shocked to hear that. Well, what do you mean? We pay all the taxes in the city. Why in the world wouldn't we be able to park in our own downtown? And I said, well, they moved it down to $25. And they said, well, how did they get to that number? We just pulled it out of the sky, and now we're at 15. Eliminating the residents from having free parking in their own downtown is crazy. I was looking at the Excel spreadsheet. And the Excel spreadsheet is showing that we're going to go from 6,300 permits to 3,000 permits in 1 year. And that's everything that you really need to know. Some of the things that I looked at and I thought, well, geez, if we were going to go after the residents, why don't we think out of the box? And I think I made this conversation during the debate on the garage, because I voted in favor of the garage. I voted in favor for the garage because not to increase parking, but the swap of parking from the waterfront, soon to be waterfront park, into a garage is something that we've been talking about for a long time. But it said in some of the paperwork that we had 14 event days during the year. Now, I know when I go to events, I could pay anywhere from $20 a day to park in a garage all the way up to $60. I mean, let's face it, when Riverfest comes to town, we could set the rate to park in that garage any place we wanted to. If you set the rate at $20 for events and you were able to flip that garage 1.5 times in one day over 14 days, you'd be making over $100,000 in 14 days. And I start thinking about these numbers and I say, why in the world are we going after the residents? We have so much ability to generate money in this garage. Who has gone out to the banks and the big employers in the city and asked them if they wanted to rent a spot? Not rent a spot where there's a plaque with their name on it, but sort of like the airlines do when you have 200 seats, but you basically sell, 210 or whatever because you feel like some people aren't going to come or you could bump them or whatever. But we know if you had 200 spots in a garage, not all people that rent a spot are all going to show up at the same time. And even if they did, we know the way our parking system is here. We have the ability to move cars around if we need to. We have so much ability to generate money in this new building without going to residents. But we got to think out of the box, and you got to think like you're not government. You got to think like you're a private business. If you were a private business, how would you fill this garage? If you didn't have the easy money, which is the residents, how would you fill it? I know, because I'm in the private sector. I know what I would be doing to fill that garage, and we'd be making money off that garage. A couple other things. Keep in mind, and I think it's been said earlier, that the garage came in, the prices came in under budget. We have the money to pay for it. We have $1 million right now in our downtown improvement funds. I think when we talk about, we need to know the data. Right now, what we're doing right now, other than raising parking rates in the different lots, because we did talk about raising those rates, so I'm with you there, is we're a year away from having the data that we need to know where we're going. Right now, we're just grabbing at things without the data that we need. I think a year from now would be a better time to have this conversation. But I think the conversation we do need to have is how do we fill this garage and how do we make money with it and how do we protect our residents so they don't get another fee thrown on top of them. We can have everything we want if we're willing to work for it. Those are just some of my thoughts going into this. So, I'm not going to be supporting $25.
Further discussion, Councilor Devlin.
Yes, I'd like to query the chair. Was the $100 recommendation in the John Burke's parking consultant, was it discussed at the, or any of the committee members, was it discussed and debated at the meeting at all?
Parking advisory. A PAC, yeah.
I know, I'm talking about at the budget and finance.
No. Not really.
Because I could have sworn when,
Of course it was.
Let him answer the question.
sure.
I think there's a context that might be helpful.
Oh,
Go
okay,
ahead,
sure.
Councilor.
I mean, just very, very briefly, the question came up as to where it came from, and it's comparable fees in other communities. And there was some question within a number of the community as to whether those communities really were comparable.
You may continue. Go ahead.
I could have sworn when someone jumped up that they were going to say, we have to listen to the experts, because I've heard that many, many times since this started. Why are you questioning this? You have to listen to the experts. We pay these experts to do this. And I see the good-looking vision of our expert over there, and our expert has said to make this work, you need to charge the residents $100. That's not what's compared with other communities. That's his recommendation to us. And that wasn't debated at all. Why? Query that, because people would be outraged. They would go nuts if they found out. This would have been so helpful to have before the garage debate, but we didn't get it. But now that we do have it, this is how I've read this parking recommendation. It is geared towards, we talk about what kind of city you want to live in. I want to live in a city where the residents come first. I want to live in a city where we all think about how the residents can benefit from helping to create this great city. And I don't want to look at the residents as profit centers. And it was alluded to a little bit earlier. We're going to put, what's next on the tennis courts? We're going to put some coin or electronic meters so that people using the tennis court have to actually rent it. Rail trail, we can put a we can put a toll booth. And so anybody who's walking down there can pay a little fee so they can walk down the rail trail. Library, that's another good one. A lot of people in there. We can put electronic reader at the door there too, or maybe we'll just install a chip and we can have one of these license plate or people chip readers so that when you walk in, they'll know that you're in the library and what books you're picking up, and we can charge a little bit extra for the more racy books or the more popular books. So, look, we have these city services for a reason. I will read this report. I'm just going to give an example. I'm kind of hand-picking. I'm not actually hand-picking. I randomly went to it. I remembered seeing it. Peak occupancy occurred, this is in November, during the 12:30 p.m. Count when the lot was 62% full. This is the Green Street lot. 38.7% of parkers in the lot were permit holders. So, over half of the 62% full, so almost 40% of the people there were permit holders. That means they were residents. In November, guess who frequents the downtown businesses? Lo and behold, we have some proof that a vast majority of it is a large part of it is the residents. You give them $100, they ain't going down there. 25, maybe. But here's the other key, and it's critical to this working. The permits don't allow our parking system to maximize revenue because or cheap permits. They want to get rid of the 10,000. You heard the councilor from Ward 2 say it by saying that there's unbelievable 10,000 permits. Well, that's because that's suggesting that there's too many. We need to get it down to 5, 7, 4, whatever it is. That means people aren't buying it and aren't coming down to the downtown. But here's the interesting thing. The next part is the number of permit holders parking in violation of the posted time limit in the green slot is quite high. And it goes on to say, and then one of the recommendations is we're going to have license plate readers, because license plate readers is going to make it easier to get those permit holders. It's also going to make it easier, it says later on, that there's lax enforcement of the permit holders or anybody in the parking lot who move within the lot after their 3 hours expires, which is still a violation. But these LPR readers, they're going to help us get those people. Guess who those people are? They are the residents. I can tell you how insanely angry I would be if in a lot that's only 62% full in November and I'm a resident that I get a $25 ticket, I would go nuts. I'm going to guess that I'm not the only one from the emails that I've been receiving. So, this is about how do we maximize the revenue off of our, either off of our residents or at their expense. I would say if we look at the many P&Ls that we got over the course of the garage debate, they were very hard to follow now, and I reminded myself going back and trying to find all of them, but I found 3. February 8th, 2016, August 24th, 2017, and then April 2nd, 2018. In increasing the parking, the resident parking fees for year 1 in the February 8, 2016, year 1, it went from $46,600 to $112,000. So it is only 10% of our fees, but in this one, which was moving employee parking to 100 to 150, residents from 5 to 10, seniors from 0 to 5, we had a significant increase of that overall. But then you go to August 24th, so as we get closer to what the vote is, we have another, because we're trying to justify that we can pay for this. We have another one that says year 1, 48,000 to 150,000, and that's $25, $150, special events doubles, extended time 6 to 8. So it's pretty close to what we have here. Then we get to the April 2nd, 2018 one, and we go from $48,999 to $129,500. and that's, dropping back down. I mean, I can't even follow why we did it so many different ways, but the bottom line is, it's the two combinations. It's not just the 10% for the permits, it's that also that fines are going to increase. And as my at-large colleague said, that's 40% of our parking revenue. So, and those are both going to be off the backs of the residents. And I have some more questions, but that's the problem I have. And I don't think we had an intellectually honest discussion about it in committee, because the recommendation was $100. And it shouldn't be, I've had people suggest this, that we're going to creep. And we'll eventually get up to the $100. And we'll that's not the way we should operate. If we're going to do this, we're going to have the debate. Again, submit all three, 15, 25, and 100. See how the people react to that. I wish we could have done it before the garage. I wish we could have the report before the garage. But I mean, I just don't think this is, the discussion, and it's not to discount the amount of work that went into it, for sure. It's certainly not about any of the three people on the committee, but it's the fact that we didn't also, say this is what this is what our expert recommends is the $100, which I wouldn't vote for either, and that this is coming off the backs of the residents. I'm going to find it hard to support any of this.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zede again.
Yes, thank you. I want to speak to the amendment specifically. I'm hearing conflicting things, which is actually what aggravates me so much about this discussion. If we export services, that implies that, export, trade deficits, all that kind of good stuff. The implication is that we're bringing in money from people outside. If the Ward 2 Council says we make enough money to pay for the garage, then why do you want more money? And I think the answer is we have to go back to the original idea behind paid parking, which was to generate funds to pay for downtown improvements. That was the original justification for it. It goes into a revolving fund called downtown improvements, which, by the way, have languished as $1 million is built up, and I'm sure you get the emails, but I certainly do, sidewalks, problems downtown, and so forth. So it's difficult to swallow that kind of these two things that are going in opposite directions. On the one hand, we're wildly successful and so forth, and on the other hand, we've got to raise more money. Second thing is, you can't have this discussion without talking about priorities. If it's only $2 a month for a resident, if we just need a little bit of money for this, I mean, I don't know what your inboxes are full of, but I'll tell you what mine are full of. Pave my stupid street, please. Pave it. If you're a ward councilor, this is your life. Every week, pave my street. The other email I get is, please put more money to the schools. Those are the priorities. If somebody said, what do you want to do? Why'd you run for council? I want to pave some stupid streets and improve the schools. So now the problem is we make enough money, except that if we put all the money towards the garage, there's no money left for all these other things. It's like there's not enough water to fill the bucket now. We're going to pay for the park. I heard that tonight. That was one that's interesting. We're going to improve downtown. We're going to do all these things, and then the Ward 4 councilors put in other information, other proposals to, again, dedicate the money towards downtown only, when other areas of the city, and by the way, that is a big part of this discussion, is we could have taken money, or could take money and put it towards our schools from parking, and now we can't. So priorities are important. The last thing I want to say is just a discussion on the process. I mean, what's frustrating for me is I feel that we blew the process. We should have had this report as we asked for it in March of 2016 unanimously before we voted on the garage. In fact, we should have had it before we voted on designing the garage. But what's important to look forward instead of backwards is, how are we not going to repeat the same thing? I may not agree with this now, but I can tell you that what is literally in front of us makes absolutely no sense for a minimum of 4 months out of the year. That's my personal opinion. November, December, January, and February. Okay, that's 5 months. Makes no sense. The lots are empty in February. I mean, I've studied the numbers. February is a worse month, and so we're continuing the bad process that got us to this point in the first place by not fully finishing and vetting this, and now we're gonna charge $1.50 in the Green Street lot on January 18th. Really? There's nobody in the lot on January 18th. So this, and the final thing I will say, and with all due respect to Ward 2 councilor dealing with parking problems, this proposal makes your problem worse in Ward 2. It doesn't make it better. What makes things better in Ward 2 is everything has to become resident parking. I haven't seen that come in. I've seen a couple streets come in, but this proposal makes that worse. More people are going to flee into the neighborhoods, not less. If you want to solve that problem, that's a different discussion. And I'm all for protecting the neighborhoods, but this isn't going to, it's going to exacerbate the problem, actually, not make it better.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tantar.
Before I address the amendment, I just want to note, if I gave you the impression that I said that parking fees were going to be used to improve the central waterfront, that did not mean to indicate that.
Okay.
All right, what I meant to say is the garage enables us to move parking from the waterfront, which was the purpose of the garage. Now, on to fees, look, I wish we lived, I'd like to work through council, I would much, for fiscal reasons, prefer that we lived in a world without Proposition 13 and Proposition 2.5. I really would, all right? In 1980, when Proposition 2.5 in Massachusetts was passed, I opposed it, all right? And those of us who opposed it on grounds that it was going to be catastrophic to public education, all right? And what has happened since 1980, roughly to about 2007, is that the state was able to make up for the loss in local revenue by charging income taxes, and then was able to distribute that across the state. That ended probably permanently in the 2007-2008 crisis. Right? So the two states that led the nation in tax limitation, right, propositions, all right, California and Massachusetts, all right, are getting squeezed on a local level. Right? Now that's the first one. The second point on fees for residents, all right, is that not all residents go downtown. Right? This is a classic fiscal argument for fees. All right? So in essence, by not charging a fee for those of us who do come down here and use the parking permits, all right, we're subsidizing. The non-people who come downtown, all right, are subsidizing those people who come downtown. Right? That's why you have fees. All right? And so you try to isolate the fees. I mean, that's the world we're living in. All right? That if you try to pay for downtown improvements simply, all right, by property taxes, those who pay, people who don't use downtown are subsidizing those who do. All right? Thirdly, I'm repeating myself here now. No, that's the case, right? Thirdly, all right, you went right into the dichotomy between residents and non-residents. You did, all right? And that's not, this is the issue downtown, all right? How do we make spaces on the street in the Green Street lot available to keep our downtown retail, restaurant businesses going? All right, you need spaces. I don't know this, but the speculation in committee, all right, was that those long-term parkers who are doing the parking shuffle downtown are employees. All right, so the issue is so that's my conflict. All right, I don't think it's people from Jefferson Street who are going on there for 6-7 hours a day, parking their car and shuffling. It's resident employees, right? And so it's a catch-22. Do you have your employees parked there, which means that your customers are further away, or do you move it around, make spaces available for customers, and have your employees move a little further away? I mean, as I understand it from John Berkey, who's nodding his head, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying, and that's why it's critical, right, for the continued vitality of downtown at a point of time when online businesses are killing brick and mortar stores. I don't want to lose them.
Councilor Vogel.
I just have one little quick comment about the employee shuffle, about employees leaving work to go out and move their car. It's hugely expensive. And when you have this conversation with a shop owner whose hourly employee has to leave the store to go out and move their car, what happens during that time? Cigarette, maybe stop at the bank, maybe quickly grab something. If you add up the amount of time that the employees have to go out and shuffle their cars around, it's immensely expensive. And when you have this conversation with shop owners, some of them go, oh, whoa, let me think about that. and they go and they buy a $100 a year parking permit for their employees and go park and don't leave the store because I don't want you leaving the store to go shuffle your car around and pay you to do that. So there's a reality right there that employees shuffling their cars around is more expensive than not. And I just throw that little tidbit out there to recognize, indeed, what we're trying to do is make this work so that people can come and park downtown and make use of the spaces. And conversation with the second story people as well. You can go park. Go park at the waterfront and have a little bit of a walk. And they go, oh yeah, okay. I mean, you got to have these conversations with these people face to face, and they begin to realize it's really no big deal. You're right, it's not broken, but we need to make it better.
I believe.
I just had a point of clarification. We're debating the amendment. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Amendment.
Okay, just wanted.
Good point.
The resident parking fee from $15 to $25 in the proposal.
Right, but it was easier to
Councilor
switch
Z.
over to an
I just have
argument
two
that could
comments.
win.
One is, it flew out of my mind to thank John Burke for his study. And your name's been used a lot tonight. I wish you'd get a company name so it would feel less personal. I think yeah, he did call you good looking. That's weird, but I do think that you did a nice job with the study. I didn't want. I meant to say that, and it flew out of my head. My question for the at-large counselor is, how is this going to solve the problem you just said? Right now, you can buy an employee pass for $100, and you can go to the East Lot and you can park. No one will harass you. Not even our esteemed parking clerk will come and harass you if you go park down. We sell, I think, 400 or sub 400 of those passes a year. It's abysmal. So this is what's driving me nuts is, okay, so and I didn't mean to imply our parking system is perfect, nothing is, but the problems I'm hearing actually in large, so now we're going to go up to 160. That doesn't make things better, it makes things worse. The one thing that I will say to try and have some positivity is it's nice to have a quarterly option. At least that's helpful for our seasonal employees who are struggling, and they oftentimes are minimum wage or low wage workers. So, but again, it's somebody has to explain to me how we're fixing things instead of making some of these things worse.
Point of order. Can we just vote on the amendment, please?
Yeah,
and then discuss the other aspects?
We're going way
One
off.
moment, please. I want to see if there's any further discussion people want to have before we vote on the amendment.
Well, I was going to answer his question.
Is something germane?
That's up to you as the president, if you want me to allow to answer the question.
I would like you to
If you
answer
think
the
it's off
question, and then
topic.
let's move to the vote, please. Go ahead. Councilor Eigenman.
Yes, so, I had a conversation with a resident of Ward 6 who works downtown. He has a law office, and just in a nutshell, we're going to deal with it in the resident parking program. So, in other words, he didn't care about the price. He said, make it $200, I don't care. The point is, I need somewhere to park for 8 hours, and I live in the city, and I don't want to park at the NRA East Lot because it's too far away from my office. So what we're going to be looking at, it's not before us tonight, but I thought you should know, is allowing them to park in the resident spaces until 6 o'clock. And then when people come back from work, they have to be gone. So again, city residents, they pay the $160. Not only can they park in the NRA East Lot, but say they could park on Essex Street. And then again, 6 o'clock on a weekday, they have to clear out, and then the residents come home and they should be able to park for their house. So it's not before us, but I don't want you to think it's not being discussed, because it is.
Further discussion on the amendment to raise the proposed $15 resident parking fee to $25.
Ready? Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
No.
Councilor Devlin?
No.
Councilor Earls?
No.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
No.
Councilor Khan?
No.
Councilor Shan?
No.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Motion fails. Meeting 6, 4 positive.
Now, before us is the
Motion approved.
comprehensive proposal with all of its elements as presented initially. Is there discussion on that proposal?
Please, God, no.
No. Or have we beaten this to death?
You say no, please. Greg?
Hearing no further discussion, let's proceed to a vote on the proposal unamended. Roll call vote.
And again, just to recite for the record, resident permit is in this proposal at 15, senior 5, employee 160, Quadley at 40, Hourly fee, $1 on Waterfront Trust, NRA East, West, and State Street lot. Parking garage is separately line itemed at $1. Hourly fee, $1.50 for Green Street, Prince Place, and Hales Court lot. Resident monthly pass for the garage, $60. Non-resident, $80. Fine for non-display, non-payment, overtime, $25. On-street resident annual parking is $0. Having said that, Councilor Vogel.
Wishing I could vote on each one individually. The answer is yes.
Councilor Zede.
No.
Councilor Devlin.
No.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
No.
Councilor Karen.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonta.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, councilors. Is there anything else coming out of
Yes, motion
committee?
to move order number 21, which has to do with hours.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Discussion on removing this from committee. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion, Councilor Tonto.
Yes, motion to actually move that we motion to approve as amended in committee. So the amendment in committee was to, in strike, the end Sunday between the hours of noon to 8, etc. So, that's it. So that it should read, no person shall park the vehicle between the hours of 8 to 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, period. This amendment shall take effect on, actually, it should be Monday, July 2nd.
May I offer one?
Yes.
I think, yeah, I'll fall on the sword here. Sunday needs to be spelled out as 12 to 6. I know that was the intent.
Let me do that. I'm sorry. And Sunday between the hours of noon to 6 p.m. So it's just changing 8 to 6. Anything else?
Discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say that again, because I want to make sure it's clear. So the amendment was, the original proposal was to make all days until 8 p.m. The amendment in committee was to shorten Sundays back to 6 p.m., which is what it is today. So what you see is not quite what was discussed in committee, just to be clear. So it's Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sundays, noon to 6 p.m. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Councilor Eigenman?
Yeah, I remember the discussion in committee, but I still don't understand the rationale. Why, again, we just spent a lot of time talking about residents, but this is visitors, right? So why?
Well, I'll answer. I mean, the chair didn't mention, but this came out 2-1 too. I was the one opposed, but I'm the one that, I mean, I was in Boston last week. They don't meter at all on Sundays. So my rationale is pretty simple. It's Sunday nights. Just leave it alone. It's all right if people want to come down and park for free, even visitors that want to come in, maybe drive some business during some quiet times. It's not the product of 1,000 hours of thought. It's just 6 to 8 p.m. on a Sunday. We actually never discussed the implications of the staffing that we're going to have in order to meet this, and the potential contract changes. The parking clerk says we can do it, and people want more hours, but you know, so that was it. That was the rationale.
Further discussion? Councilor Genta?
So I've said in the past that I oppose this move from 6 to 8. And the reason that I do is simple. Again, a little history lesson from 2011, to give the restaurants a break. The idea is that, you know, for the dinner crowd coming in, that they would be able to park for free. Because keep in mind, you already got the meals tax. You've already got liquor taxes. There's a lot of things going on with restaurants, and restaurants, as you know, are very delicate businesses. They come and go. And the idea behind it is we were going to leave that door open for them starting at 6 o'clock, that people could park for free so they can enjoy the different restaurants that we have to offer. And we're going back on that. And I know it's 7 years later, but I haven't forgotten. I wasn't a city councilor then, but I watched all these meetings. And I was here when all this happened. And I'm not going to go against the restaurants. I feel their pain, and I'm gonna be there for them.
Councilor Ackerman?
Yes, no, I'm very sensitive to the downtown restaurants. I speak with the restaurateurs often, as recently as today, to one of the major ones. And I don't doubt that was I don't know what happened in 2011. I'll take the councilor's word for it. I think it's turned out to be a fallacy. So in fact, we talked about subsidy a little bit earlier. We're essentially, the retailers are subsidizing the restaurants. And in fact, the restaurant sector, although they are complaining about competition, and they've seen some drop off in their individual profit margins, it's not because of the parking. So again, we're talking about 2 hours of parking. That's a $3 cost to their customers. I did read in the paper last year, I think it was, or 2 years ago, when this first was proposed, some complaints from restaurateurs. That's not the sense I've been getting from restaurateurs downtown. And in fact, I think it's grossly unfair to the retailers that, and they are not doing as well as the restaurants. So I think we need to accept the fact that Newburyport is a success. The decision was made 40-odd years ago that we would try to attract more visitors to town. At that time, there were very few restaurants in Newburyport. There was Labadini's and a couple others. I can't even think of the other ones downtown. Yeah. So this was a departure. It's a success. Let's recognize success. We are not going to drive away visitors for $3. That is absurd. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Vogel.
Just for clarity, and I agree wholeheartedly with the councilor from Ward 2, but just for clarity, we do charge, on top of the 6.25% sales tax, we do charge 3/4 cent on a dollar for meals tax. There is no liquor tax. It's only...
They pay an excise tax on liquor.
Oh, you go into a restaurant, you buy something, it's 7% tax.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
This is approved as amended with Sunday going to 6. Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
No.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
No.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The motion passes. We're making progress. Anything else, Councilor?
Slow and steady. Both of you.
Yeah, sorry.
Time is ticking.
Motion to remove transfer 7, health insurance, 30,000.
Moved and second to remove transfer 7 out of committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. It's out.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a second. Discussion? Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, this came, committee is recommending 3-0, that we approve this. It's just, we need more money.
We need more money.
Line to the city solicitor for the business, and it's available from the health insurance, so we're doing it.
Only thing I want to add is that this year's spending is not out of line, so we have this discussion often about whether we're here on the council are asking for city solicitor advice too much or something. Based on the finance director's comments, this has been an underfunded line for several years in a row, maybe probably will be this year too, but it's not like we spent double what we spent last year. It is what it is, so thank you.
Councilor. Further discussion? Hearing none, a voice vote will suffice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else, Councilor?
Yes, motion to remove communication 26, annual audit.
Moved and seconded to remove communication 26. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. It's out.
Motion approved.
There's a second. Discussion, Councilor
Yeah,
Tata.
Approve, receive, and
This came
file.
out of committee with a 3-0 recommendation to approve. I'm not gonna go into detail on this. Just basically, the audited financial statement is an examination of the accounting policies, in essence, that are used to come up with the city's financial statements. And there were no material weaknesses this year. First year since I've been on the council, there were no material weaknesses. There were a couple of suggestions as to how the committee could improve it. What's a material weakness? What are they looking for? They're looking for something in the internal accounting rules in the city that would lead one to the conclusion, the auditors to the conclusion, that the processes were not in place to prevent an error from happening. So that's what the audited financial statement is looking at. I would secondly urge the public to go to the city website, go on the departments. Once you're there, go to the finance department. Once you go to the finance department, look in the left corner, and you will see Financial Report Center. Click on that, and you will come up with this most excellent document, which is the popular annual financial report that in 4 pages succinctly indicates the city's financials. And I thank Ethan Marion for that. But we recommend that you receive and file.
Yeah, receive and file.
Further discussion? Hearing none,
Receive and file.
Receive and file it is.
The motion was to receive and file. It was seconded by...
Second.
So, we've had our discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
One no?
No. I'm in favor of receiving and filing it. I'm sorry. It's getting late.
Budget finance is done.
Okay, education. Nothing to report?
Our next meeting is May 7th, 5:30 at the Senior Center, and everybody is welcome to join us, and anybody is welcome to send us agenda items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, there's nothing to report. License and permits.
Motion to remove appointment 31.
Second. Moved and seconded to remove item 31 from committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. It's out.
For the record, please indicate that I recuse myself.
Motion to approve appointment 31.
Second. Moved and seconded to approve. Discussion. Counselor.
The committee did meet this evening, and as a vote of 2, an approval and 1 abstaining due to perhaps conflict of interest, perceived conflict of interest, we would bring a favorable motion to the floor.
Thank you. Further discussion. Counselor Z.
I'd just like to make a motion to waive the rules. These 2 appointments are not in the packet unless, they're not in my packet anyway, so, but I'm all right with them, so I'll make a motion to waive the rules to allow them to be heard.
One moment. Was there anyone else who did not have this in their packet?
I do not.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think if we withdraw the initial motion, then you can waive the rules, then move again. Would you mind doing that, Counselor?
Okay, motion to waive the rules to allow these 2, appointment 31 and 32.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor of reviewing?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you for the catch. I wasn't aware that people didn't have this. And we're back to the initial motion. Counselor Earls.
Then in that case, I will actually waive the rules to take them collectively. Appointment 31 and appointment 32.
Second. Discussion.
The committee did meet this evening, and we did, in a vote of 2, an approval and 1 abstaining on both of them, approve both these reappointments.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Counselor?
Despite having served on the License Commission with both of them and getting to know them, I still voted to approve them.
Well, you can answer that when you see them. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
There must be a roll call. I'm sorry.
Roll call. And the second on this motion to approve was?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
You gotta move.
Roll call vote then.
Councilor Vogel?
Recused.
Not answering me. Counselor Z? Counselor Devlin?
Yes.
Counselor Earl?
Yes.
Counselor Igan?
Yes.
Counselor Junta?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Shan?
Yes.
Counselor Tonto?
Yes.
Counselor Connell?
Yes. That's it for license and permits, correct?
Thank you.
Would someone recover? Yes, here you go.
Already done.
Good. Neighborhood and city services? Planning and development.
Yes, Mr. President. Motion to waive the rules so we can consider the nomination of David St. Cyr.
Second. To waive the rules.
Okay. Motion to remove collectively appointments 16 and 17.
One moment.
What?
There was a motion to waive the rules, right? Let's act on that first.
Did we vote already?
All those in favor of waiving the rules? Say aye. Opposed? Okay, Counselor.
Sorry, motion to remove collectively appointments 16 and 17, David St. Cyr and Robert Ulick to the NRA.
Second.
Moved and second to remove appointments 16 and 17 from committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Motion received and filed.
Second. Moved and second to receive and file. Discussion, Counselor.
Yes, so we had a public hearing on Robert Ulick's reappointment, but both candidates have withdrawn their names. So the way it works under state law, until they're replaced, they can hold over. So you probably heard in the mayor's report, they've asked to hold over till June 30th, which is reasonable, and they're scheduling meetings May 23rd and June 20th to try and hash out everything. And so this seems to be the most elegant way to deal with it, is to receive and file. Thank you.
Point of order, I don't have.
Yeah.
I don't have.
We already waived the rules. That's why I did that. That's why I did that.
Oh, that rule.
Yeah.
I was
We
going.
ruled that.
Okay, further discussion. All those in favor, we'll have to do a roll call, won't we? No, because it's receive and file. All those in favor, by a voice vote, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Counselors.
Motion to remove appointment 33, late file Jennifer Blanchett.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All the discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? She is out.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, we had a hearing on this last week. Ms. Blanchett appeared. She submitted her resume. We asked her questions. We found her performance exemplary, and we recommended unanimously that she be, in absence, that it was to zip, that she be approved.
Thank you. Further discussion. Hearing none, it'll be a roll call.
Counselor Vogel?
Yes.
Counselor Z?
Yes.
Counselor Devlin?
Yes.
Counselor Earl?
Yes.
Counselor Igan?
Yes.
Counselor Junta?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Shan?
Yes.
Counselor Tonto?
Yes.
Counselor Connell?
Yes. And I believe that's it. Is that correct?
Right now.
no.
Motion to remove ordinance 10, lot area calculations for residential districts.
Second. All those in favor of moving this from committee, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's out.
Motion to amend.
Second.
Perhaps we should push to amend. Is that the appropriate? I was going to ask for it.
You're amending the order 10 that is in the packet.
Yes.
Let's come
I
on.
may explain.
It's on the floor.
Has it been seconded? I'm holding it, sorry.
Councilor Thompson?
Good. Discussion. Councilor Eigenman?
Well, I yield the floor to the sponsor.
Yes, this is my motion.
Oh, this is,
And there were actually two parts of it. One is to exclude wetlands from calculations of plot size. And the original ordinance excluded buffer zones. After talking to a number of, and getting input from a number of people, I moved to remove buffer zones from that and just include wetlands.
And Mr. Clerk, I can hand you something. It appears 3 times, buffer zones, so I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, I made a copy too.
Well, there's another amendment. Okay, I'll make an amendment. Another amendment is to...
Oh, two.
Why don't we act on the first
Okay.
amendment, and then we'll proceed to the next. All those in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed? Go ahead, Councilman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other amendment was to clarify that this did not, that this only applied to residential lots. So the amendment, you have it in front of you, it's adding R1, R2, and R3 residential lots in the second paragraph. So it excludes all others.
R1, R2, R3?
Yep.
Second paragraph.
It's E. Wait a minute, I know what I did.
It's in D. I'll hand it to the clerk.
I ran off a copy of it someplace. Nope, that's not it. Oh, here it is.
It's here.
It takes out, yeah, let me, it adds, actually this copy that I ran off. So it's in paragraph D, regardless of actual lot size, at least 80% of the minimum lot area required for the applicable R1, R2, and R3 residential zoning districts shall be provided in contiguous uplands.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call on this.
This is just
No,
the
this is the
amendment.
amendment, right? This is the amendment. I stand corrected.
Applicable R1, R2, R3.
Just the amendment.
Just the
Just the
amendment.
amendment. A voice vote will do for an amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? One opposed?
No, just would like
All
to
right,
speak.
hold on for a second,
on the
please.
matter.
So we have two amendments,
Both passed.
Both passed.
and this, the discussion reverts to the initial proposal.
There needs to be a motion on the floor.
Motion to refer to committee.
Second.
Planning and Development.
Second, right? Councilor Zede.
Yeah, want to go first?
Yeah, just my intent here was, and I'll explain this, there are a number of projects in the city that were frozen because of the inclusion of buffer zones. So I personally don't think that the Planning and Development Committee to this point has given enough attention to consideration of this. So what I'd like to do is unfreeze those projects that couldn't proceed because of the buffer zone inclusion, and then set it back to committee for further consideration.
Councilor Zede.
I want to, well, first a couple thanks. Thank you to the sponsor for explaining, and thanks to the Director of Planning and the Planning Office for getting some info. I was at the Planning and Development meeting last week, and I felt that we needed more information, and the map was part of that. So I'm appreciative that we have it, but the more I think about it, the idea philosophically doesn't make sense to me, unfortunately. I have spoken with the sponsor about this. Wetlands are part of the property somebody owns. So we already capture this through lot size. So let's say you have 100 by 100 square and you've got some wetlands around it. You've already got to come inside of the wetlands and be within the lot area that you are permitted to build within. Pardon me, lot area is not the right term. It is late, but whatever the right term is, you have your setbacks and so forth. So if the purpose of a setback and so forth and lot size is to allow for sufficient space in between two properties, for example, to reduce the imposition, let's say, of your neighbor's property, what difference does that make if the open space is wetlands or not? As it is, you're already prohibited from building there. So the buffer zones, I agree, definitely helps, and I will grant the sponsor that, but it still doesn't make logical sense to me. And I have heard an argument that, well, this will help with things like patios and so forth, but it's your land. You can't build in the wetlands. If you decide to build right up to the edge and you still make your setbacks, you can't have a patio. I mean, that to me is how I look at it. So it doesn't feel right, and I originally thought I wanted more information, but the more I thought about it, it didn't make sense. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm not comfortable recommitting it back to committee because I'm not sure more information will help. So I'm open to hearing other people's point of view, but that's where I landed.
Okay, Councilor Vogel?
I rise in opposition as well. I almost feel as though there are so many properties that need to be considered. If we send it back to committee, we're holding up all of those properties. I think we're going to have a comprehensive zoning review. It's going on. I know the planning department has also voiced their opinion about this, and it's not necessarily something that they would like to see. They would like to have it considered when it comes up to our comprehensive zoning. I find the genesis of this, which we all know, is in a particular, one particular project. I don't feel as though that's right at all. And I agree with the counselor from Ward 1. If you meet, you know, the Conservation Commission, if you building legitimately, then just do it. I think that this is way overstepping, and I will vote no to send it to committee. I'd like to see it taken up and voted for tonight.
Councilor Tantar.
Yeah, this did come to my attention because of an issue in Ward 4. I acknowledge that, and let me explain that a little bit. On a particular plot, there was an attempt to build a two-family. It's R2 that requires a special permit at the discretion of the planning board. The issue's been before the planning board for, what, 6 months now, more than that, and they keep on continuances. There's that phrase in the special permitting process that says specifically that there should be no detriment, that, you know, the project there should not be anything detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. The neighbors have tried to argue against this particular project based on it being detrimental. That's hopelessly subjective. When I asked them, why is it detrimental, the answer was, well, because a lot, you know, a fairly significant portion of the lot is wetlands, right? And so in trying to avoid that subjective evaluation by the ZBA members, which puts them in a very bad position, they don't like to do that, I looked for something that was objective. And something that's objective is the inclusion of wetlands, or the exclusion of wetlands in calculating lot size. I looked statewide, approximately 60% of communities in the state, and not just rural communities, take wetlands out of it. So, you know, quite frankly, in looking at it, I see it as another arrow in the quiver that allows the city to protect itself from development. Increasingly, and I think you're right, increasingly what we're doing is we are facing marginal properties that have wetlands on them. And if we want to preserve the character of our neighborhoods and the city, I think it's important to add this as a weapon.
Councilor Genta.
You know, this map is really telling, you know, the visual of it. This ordinance would take an entire neighborhood of mine off the map. I don't...
Well, I mean, the houses don't have to be taken down.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, the Squire Glen neighborhood is all blue, the entire neighborhood, so.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of referring this?
I just want to make sure where you're going.
Yeah, referring this back to committee.
Referring it
To planning and development. Say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
At the discretion of the chair, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please. The chair's involved.
Motion to refer to planning and development. Councilor Vogel?
No.
Councilor Z?
No.
Councilor Devlin?
No.
Councilor Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Agaman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
No.
Councilor Khan?
No.
Councilor Shan?
No.
Councilor Tonto?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Motion to receive and file? Is that what you want to go for approve?
There's a motion.
I'd like a point of order.
Was there a motion?
Motion to receive and file.
Is there
It's
a
on the
second?
floor now, we have to do something with it.
Motion to approve.
Councilor
Is there a second?
Tontas.
Hearing no second, is there another motion?
I'm not going to support receive and file.
There is a motion
Second.
to approve.
It's going to go down, but yeah, I second it.
The motion is to approve and seconded. Further,
Apparently not.
You get one.
You
now.
did not.
No, I didn't hear one. I'm sorry, Councilor Z. There was no second.
That's okay.
There was a second.
No. On the receive and file.
No, we're going to vote on it.
On the receive and file, there was no second.
Motion on the floor.
Councilors, the question is motion to approve. And it has been seconded by Councilor Vogel.
No. Motion to approve was seconded by,
I made the motion.
He made the
There-
motion.
There was an original receive and file, no second. I
Yes.
made a motion to approve. It was seconded by one of you
by
gentlemen.
me.
Okay. I'm going to ask the clerk, whose eyes are sharper than mine at this hour.
Is that correct? Yeah, that sounds correct.
We have a motion
That's
to
what I've got. Motion to approve
Yes.
on the floor, first and seconded.
Very well. Discussion.
Here's my question.
Councilor Seed.
If it fails, it can't be brought back for 3 years? 2 years? Somebody remind me. Isn't there a state law that if a zoning amendment fails, there's a clock that can't bring it back for a certain period? I think it's 2 years.
I think it's two.
If I may, it's 2 years unless the planning board recommends adoption.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
One quick question.
Councilor Shand.
So is this something that can, if we don't approve it, is it something that can be considered in the zoning rewrite that's going on right now?
2 years.
Board
Okay,
approves it.
so that's, okay.
Yep. Planning board, yeah. Further discussion or questions of the planning director? Hearing none, again, I think it's going to be a close vote. I'm going to ask for a roll call on the motion to approve.
Motion to approve, needing 8. Councilor Vogel? No. No. Councilor Z?
No.
Councilor Devlin?
No.
Councilor Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman?
No.
Councilor Junta?
No.
Councilor Khan?
No.
Councilor Shan?
No.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Thank you, Councilor.
That's it from planning and development.
Thank you, Councilor. Public safety.
Oh, nothing to report other than we're going to meet on Thursday at 6 o'clock. We won't be discussing the houseboats or floating homes, but we will, because Larry and Councilor Junta and I are available. I'm not sure about Councilor O'Brien. I'd really like to have him in on some of these. He is having cataract surgery tomorrow as well. So we won't be discussing the half marathon either. The bottom two, yes, ordinance 12 and order 23, and then the events that came in today.
Thank you, Councilor. Public utilities.
Meeting tomorrow, small cell sites. See you there.
Rules Committee.
Committee.
Middle of the order.
No.
Councilor Tontar.
Just quickly, I would like to wish Councilor O'Brien well, and I'm sure he's watching us.
Sure.
And not watching the Celtics, Bruins, and Red Sox.
That's more entertaining than we are.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're done.
No.
We
I
just
want
made
to stay
it.
here past 11 so we can take the rules.
10:51.
Greg, thank you for
Pretty
that
good,
vote.
huh? No,
Thank you for that vote.
Absolutely.
No, we did.